All right, good afternoon and welcome to the Alternative Assessment Panel meeting of September 7th. This meeting is hereby called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves during the meeting and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. The purpose of the Alternative Assessment Panel is to hear appeals from decisions of the Design Review Board. This is a de novo hearing. Any decision which may be rendered today will be based solely on the information presented at this meeting. The decision of the Alternatives Assessment Panel will be the final decision of the project. Thus, all appellants and applicants should present all evidence which he or she may wish this panel to consider. The Alternatives Assessment Panel may sustain, modify, or overturn the decision of the originating Design Review Board. Possible Alternatives Assessment Panel decisions are as follows: approve with conditions, deny, or continue to another Alternative Assessment Panel meeting for additional information. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting and possible decisions is available at the table by the front door. Any decision of the panel may be appealed to the City Council by filing a notice of appeal and the appeal fee with Permit Services Center during normal business hours within 7 days of the panel decision. The public meeting will be conducted in the following manner. Staff will present a brief overview of the project, including the action taken by the Design Review Board. Then, the appellant or the appellant's authorized representative will be given 10 minutes to present his or her reasons for the appeal. The applicant or the applicant's authorized representative, if not the appellant, which in this case is not, will be given 10 minutes to describe his or her project. Then, any others wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to the project will be asked to come forward and provide testimony. Speakers from the public will be limited to 3 to 5 minutes depending on the board's decision. Next, the applicant, if not the appellant, will be provided 5 minutes for rebuttal comments. And then following, the appellant will be provided 5 minutes for rebuttal comments. After all speakers have made their presentations, and the public portion of the matter at that point in time will be closed. No further testimony will be taken from any member of the public, the appellant, the applicant, or the staff unless specific questions are directed by the members of the panel or unless the chairperson reopens the public comment portion of the meeting. Once the public portion of the meeting is closed, members of the panel will discuss the particular matter and make a decision. Anyone who wishes to speak, including the appellant and the applicant, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker cards by the front door. You will be called to present or to speak on the specific item indicated. If you are speaking for, against, or if your comments are neutral towards the project, please note this on your speaker card. In this case, there's been some confusion as to whether you are for the project or for the appeal. Perhaps you can just state that whether or not you are for the appeal or for the project when speaking. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings, if any. That moves us to the agenda for the Alternative Assessment Panel. In terms of a roll call, Board Member Ellis.
Present.
Board Member Insua.
Here.
Board Member Simonian.
Here.
Board Member Friedman.
Here.
Board Member Zarifian.
Here.
Report regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 3 p.m. on July 31st, 2008. We only have one item on today's AAP agenda, and that is for the Design Review Board case number 2-PDR-200-100-AAP. The project is located at 1749 Allen Avenue. And this project happens to be my case. So, in regards to a brief overview as specified, case number 2-PDR 2007-100-AAP is for the property located at 1749 Allen Avenue. The applicant is Hamlet Zarabians. The appellant is Mr. Ralph Lee, a property owner in the neighborhood, and the owner is A.E. Galston. The applicant is proposing to remove greater than 50% of the exterior roof and walls of an existing one-story residence and to construct essentially a new 6,648 square foot single-family home with an attached 4-car garage, 2 spaces in tandem, on approximately a 58,000 square foot lot zoned R1R single-family residential. The proposed home has been designed as a modern interpretation of a traditional ranch-style home. The existing attached 3-car garage will be demolished, and stated a new 4-car garage will be provided, 2 of which will be tandem spaces. The proposed house will be 2 stories with a new lower level constructed below the existing street level of the house. While the location of the building and the driveway access will remain the same, the rear yard will be improved with an expanded deck area and new swimming pool and spa. Because the project is considered new construction, essentially, a standards variance was required in order to allow the continued use of the existing driveway, since it is not located on the same lot. This standards variance was approved by the zoning administrator back on January 31st, 2008. The existing property, as stated, is a 1-story residence constructed in 1959 in a style most closely resembling a contemporary ranch. The project is also exempted from CEQA. To give you a brief project history and background, on June 5th, 2008, the Design Review Board number 2 reviewed the project as a first-time submittal for final review. Previously, a Mediterranean-style version of the project, and that is shown here on the plans behind you, directly to the left-hand side. These particular plans were presented for preliminary review by the Design Review Board back on October 18th, 2007. The board voted to have the project be allowed to proceed to final review with 4 comments. The staff report and the record of decision was attached as part of your staff report for this particular AAP hearing. On June 5th, 2008, the board was presented the latest set of revised plans featuring a more modern interpretation of a traditional ranch-style home that addressed the 4 comments made by the Design Review Board back in October. The staff report recommended approval of the project. Following the architect's presentation, additional public testimony, and various comments made by both the public and the architect, the board voted to approve the project with 3 conditions. And mind you, at that particular time, we had a 3-person board. This was made up by Board Member Friedman, Board Member Garagos, and Board Member Zarifian. Board Members Carter and Board Members Carter and Board Member Malikian had to abstain for conflicts of interest. So again, the three-member Design Review Board number 2 voted to approve the project with the following conditions. 1, to consider revising the treatment of the balcony around the 2 upper-level rear elevation bay projections. This was to minimize the vertical emphasis. If you'd like, I can...
You said conditions, and now you use language of consider.
Oh. In this case, there were 3 conditions that were attached, the first one being actually a consideration.
Okay, so it's 2 conditions and a consideration.
Correct.
Okay.
Or actually, in this case, it was 2 considerations and 1 condition.
Okay.
So... Oh, there isn't? There wasn't attached? Okay, thank you for pointing that out. In this case, consider revising the treatment. This would be the upper level balcony, and there was a consideration made that the treatment of the balcony around the upper 2 levels rear elevation projections be minimized to decrease the level of horizontal emphasis. The second was to reevaluate and, if necessary, redesign how the backyard landscaping pad intersects the garden wall at the southwest corner of the building in anticipation of any negative drainage aspects of the neighborhood to the neighbors below. I believe, unfortunately, you were sent the incorrect landscaping plan. This plan was actually presented at the last Design Review Board date of June 5th. This was actually presented by Larry Tyson, a licensed landscape architect. Unfortunately, you received the previous landscaping plan in your packet, so please refer to any comments with this particular landscaping plan in mind done by Larry Tyson. And again, this was to address the comments here that were made that might have influenced cross-drainage issues down to the bottom level for the neighbor below. And the last comment that was made by the board was to consider removing the proposed corbels and unifying the material treatment. Again, you have a standing seam roof. You also had proposed wood corbels and certain details, as you see here, that were actual architectural details. The board felt at that point in time there should be more of a unified theme throughout, and so to consider removing the proposed corbels. Going back to the actual comments that were made by the Design Review Board during their discussions, and as cited for justification of approval, those comments were, 1, the proposed style and contemporary materials blend with the existing homes. The Design Review Board felt that the proposed site plan, which utilizes the current location of the home and takes advantage of the sloped area below the existing building pad, that the footprint of the existing structure has not been altered significantly, and while the size of the upper level, which remains the more visible portion of the project, is compatible with the sizes of the surrounding home. That the lower level, which is the additional floor area, is built underneath the existing building pad and appears more as a basement-like feature, thus having minimal impact on the perceived mass of the overall project. That although the proposed home is larger than many of the surrounding homes in the area, the home's upper level size and the lower level's recessed location within the slope are justifiable with the context of the above average 58,000 square foot lot. And lastly, that the concerns expressed by the board back in October during the preliminary review have been substantially addressed. Now, following, yes, Board Member Ellis.
Sorry, are you done with your part of it? I have a point of question. Because this is an assessment panel, don't we need to elect a chair? Did I miss that?
Yes, that would be.
Okay.
Forgive us. Board Member Simonian sat in his appointed chair, and yes.
Well, he's a very good.
I apologize.
I sat behind where my name was. So I was following directions.
That's exactly. So I just thank you, Board Member Ellis, for pointing that out.
I'll move Mr. Simonian be the chair, but.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Board Member Simonian, if you don't mind proceeding as chairperson for the alternative assessment panel.
Okay.
Thank you, staff.
Thank you, Board Member Ellis.
And thank you for a wonderful presentation. That gave us a really good idea.
Not yet. Sorry. I have a few more details. Actually,
Very good.
quite.
I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
Not just quite a few more details. Well, hopefully we'll
Please
keep this
take
brief.
as much time as you want, because I think it's important for us to understand everything that's happened in order.
Essentially, the board voted to approve the project. This approval, with conditions and considerations, was appealed by an adjacent property homeowner, Mr. Ralph Lee. He appealed the board's decision to approve the conditions, stating that the Design Review Board did not follow the city's residential design guidelines with regards to hillside ordinance, and also criticized the incompatibility of the proposed size and mass of the new proposal in relation to the existing neighborhood. Again, Mr. Lee noted that the approval of a house that is approximately 3,600 square feet larger than the average home in the neighborhood, and this is actually approximately 200 square feet large. I apologize, I'm misspeaking. Approximately 219% larger than the average size homes in the existing area. The Pellin's statements were included as part of your staff report. And again, based on the information provided by the Design Review Board and the basis for the appeal, staff acknowledges the fact that the home is above average for the particular neighborhood, both in terms of the numerical size of the home and the floor area ratio. Staff nevertheless supports the design of the project for the reasons cited by the board. The perceived massing and overall architecture of the building will be compatible with the surrounding hillside neighborhood, given the footprint of the home has not changed much, except for the utilization of the slope underneath the building pad. The new lower level would be constructed below what is the existing entry level of the house, and only the upper level will be visible from the private driveway. Again, this is from the private driveway leading to the home, with the lower level tucked under the upper level and set back approximately 40 feet from the edge of the slope. Therefore, the project utilizes and maximizes the existing building pad and site topography, and so the massing does not appear overbearing or excessive despite the home size. Staff recommends approval of the project with the 3 conditions and considerations as previously noted by the Design Review Board, number 2. That concludes staff's presentation. I am available to go into the various details or to walk the board through the actual site plan and architectural style of the building. If not, if the board has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer those as well.
Do we have the photo packet of the houses around it?
Yes, we do.
That was my only question.
And this would be the actual photo packet that was submitted by the applicant.
Ivan, did you want to see the photos of the house?
Thank you. Well, I've actually drove by, but this is not the back.
Okay. And these are aerial photographs that were submitted during the previous.
This is the house right below them, right? Do we know the square footage of that house?
Yes, I'll be able to look that up for you in just a moment. These are additional photos.
Oh, let me start with Ivan and that way I let us know he's seen them.
I have a question for you. I was trying to find the height of the project, and I'm looking on sheet A5, which is the building west elevation. Do you know what the height? I was trying to find it in the information. I heard about it talked at the last meeting,
Correct.
and I'm just wondering.
The overall height of this particular two-story structure is 25 feet 6 inches, which is typical of what the height would be for a flat building pad type single-family residential development. And again, this is a hillside home. So based on the fact that it's R1R, it would be allowed to go up to 32 feet in overall height with a 35-foot maximum for a sloped roof.
It might be helpful to explain what the height is now and what's proposed. So how much higher will it be?
I do not have as-built drawings for the existing home. It is a one-story structure that's on a sloped building pad, and so you would be able to go ahead. In this case, what is being proposed is to actually excavate underneath the existing building pad and the home, thereby providing a two-story structure ultimately.
So, because the question I asked, when I looked at this building west elevation side too, FF, and I'm not an architect, is the finished floor level, right? That's where you'd measure from? It seems to indicate it's 1,008 feet. And then the top of the roof, not counting the chimney, is 1,037 feet, which is actually 29 feet.
And those might be questions that we could
Is that a question
direct
asked for
towards
you?
the
Okay, great.
yeah, the architect, but
Okay.
he might be able to give us more details on that question than
Okay.
staff.
It says, it actually says it's 26 and a half, and that's why the numbers didn't match, and I was wondering what the story was. Okay.
And I have a few questions for staff as well.
Please.
We were presented with some black and white photographs, 8 by 10s or 8.5 by 11s. There is a image.
Forgive me, are you referring to the photographs that were presented by Mr.
Correct.
Galston? Perhaps what we might be able to have Mr. Galston, following his presentation, describe what he actually submitted to the board.
Okay. And
So,
is Mr.
I have not yet
Galston
seen-
part of the applicant or part of the appellant?
It would be, he is actually the property owner.
Property owner. So
Correct.
he's
So
I see.
these photographs were submitted right before the meeting, so staff has not yet taken a look at these photographs.
Very good.
So,
Okay. Well, do we have other questions for staff at this point in time?
I do not. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation. Our first case, of course, is 2-PDR-2007-100-AAP 1749 Allen Avenue. And the first speaker is the applicant, Hamlet Zorabians. And
Is that in fact true? Wouldn't it be
Actually,
the
no.
appellant?
the other way around.
Appellant, yeah, right.
as stated in the beginning of the meeting, first, the
Is the applicant,
appellant.
who is the applicant in this?
In this case,
This
it's the
case.
appellant who is the applicant, who is Mr.
I
Ralph
stand
Lee.
corrected.
And he actually has 10 minutes to speak, followed by the applicant for the project, who is Mr. Zorabians, who will have 10 minutes to speak.
Very good.
Then it's up to the board to determine whether or not you wish the speakers to be allowed 3 minutes or 5 minutes. So,
Okay. Then our first speaker, who is the applicant, who was the person that filed the appeal, Ralph Lee. And you have 10 minutes, so please approach the podium, state your name for the record, and you have 10 minutes to enlighten us on this entire process.
Okay, can you hear me okay? My name is Ralph Lee. I live at 1715 Allen Avenue, directly below the project site. I am the appellant in this case, opposing the project being built. I'm here today because I believe the proposed project at 1749 Allen Avenue is too large and is not compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. The Design Review Board ordinance states that a proposal must be compatible to the surrounding existing neighborhood homes in regard to size, scale, bulk, and mass. The important issue is compatibility when a development of this magnitude is proposed. The size of the house needs to be sensitive to the size of the other homes in the neighborhood. The average of the 17 neighborhood homes is 3,033 square feet. This proposed house is 6,648 square feet, more than twice as large as the average home. In fact, it is 219% larger. Let me repeat that. It is 219% larger than the average existing neighborhood home. What could be more incompatible than a house that is more than twice the size of the neighborhood average? This proposal of 6,648 square feet far surpasses in scale and mass any neighborhood home. One of the justifications cited by DRB in the approving of this project was, and I quote, "The proposal is larger than many in the surrounding area," unquote. This statement is incorrect. It should read, "This proposal is larger than any in the surrounding area." There are no homes in the surrounding area this large. We do not have any 6,648 square foot homes in our neighborhood. We do not have any 6,500 square foot homes in our neighborhood. We do not have any 6,000 square foot homes in our neighborhood. We do not have any 5,500 square foot homes in our neighborhood. We do not have any 5,000 square foot homes in our neighborhood. In fact, out of the 17 homes in the applicant's neighborhood survey, there are only 2 homes that are more than 4,000 square feet. Both of these are less than 5,000 square feet. Let me put it another way. 90% of the existing neighborhood homes are less than 4,000 square feet. 90% less than 4,000 square feet. Yet this proposal is for 6,648 square feet. That is 2,648 square feet larger than 90% of the existing homes. Hardly what one would refer to as compatible by any stretch of the imagination. Again, I refer to the Design Review Ordinance that a proposal must be compatible to the surrounding existing neighborhood homes in regard to size, scale, bulk, and mass. This proposal is 380% larger. That's nearly 400% larger than the smallest home in the neighborhood, which is located at the foot of the applicant's driveway. This proposal is 250% larger than the existing house on the site. 250% larger. Another justification for approval by the DRB states, quote, "The footprint of the existing structure has not been significantly altered," unquote. The proposed upper floor is 63% larger than the existing footprint. That's 1,673 square feet larger than the 2,659 existing square feet. That's over half again larger than the existing footprint. This is significant. Prescription drug dosages that are 63% larger than they should be. Checkout prices at the market that are 63% larger than they should be. Taxes that are 63% larger than they should be are all significant numbers. 63% larger is a significant increase in footprint size on a small pad on this hill. This proposal is for a 2-story home. The proposed upper level alone, just the upper level alone, is larger than all but 2 homes in the area. Let me repeat that. The proposed upper level alone is larger than all but 2 homes in the neighborhood. To put it simply, the proposed upper level alone is bigger than 90% of the existing homes in the neighborhood. Again, the proposed upper level alone is bigger than 90% of the neighborhood homes. That's just the upper level. There's still a proposed 2,316 square foot lower level. Hardly what one would consider compatible. Now, in the past, much attention has been focused on the 6 large lots on the northwest side of Allen Avenue, of which this proposal is lot number 4. Large lots with small building pads on steep, non-buildable hillsides are the norm. The existing homes on lots 1 through 6 average 3,420 square feet. The overall neighborhood average is 3,033 square feet, a difference of only 387 square feet. This proposal is 3,228 square feet larger than the average for lots 1 through 6. So, the proposal is 200% larger than the average for lots 1 through 6 and 217% larger than the entire overall neighborhood average. In either case, more than twice as large and non-compatible. The proposed home is a 6,648 square foot 2-story home. I live directly below the applicant in a 1-story home. This proposal is 4,040 square feet larger than my existing home. You could take my entire home, put it in the proposed upper floor alone, and still have 1,724 square feet of the proposed upper floor vacant. And this is just the upper floor. We're not even getting to the lower floor of 2,300 square foot. To summarize, I cannot support the project due to its continuing mass and incompatible scale. 100% of the neighborhood homes are smaller than the proposal. This proposal is 3,616 square feet larger than the 17-home neighborhood average. That's 219% larger. This proposal is 200% larger than the average for the 6 homes adjacent to it on the large lots. The proposed upper floor alone is larger than 90% of the existing neighborhood homes. That's just the upper floor. The existing neighborhood average is 1 story. The proposal is for a 2-story home. And let's be honest, the visual impact will be staggering when observing a 6,648 square foot home attached to a 4-car garage for a total mass of 7,509 square feet on a hillside. To approve such a project is to ignore the spirit and intent of the Glendale Hillside Ordinance. The DRB decision should be based on sound reasoning backed by actual data and common sense. A proposal of such magnitude with regard to mass, size, and square footage renders it incompatible with the existing surrounding neighborhood homes, and it should be reduced in size. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you. Now, the architect for the project, Hamlet Zorabians.
Is the air conditioning on?
Yes, we have actually called maintenance
you.
services, and hopefully they will be adjusting it shortly.
Not in short sleeves, for sure. Take your jacket off, sir.
President, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the RB. My name is Hamlet Zorabians, and I'm the project architect. And I know I have limited time, and so I'll make my comments and information that I need to give to you very brief. First of all, I'm very much glad that if the building is designed and it's going to be built, we're not going to see all these numbers that we just heard as a poster on the facade of the building, because that's going to basically cover it. I don't think compatibility necessarily deals with numbers and such, because there are also numbers that I think we need to consider, such as FAR, which is the floor area ratio, such as the lot area, which in comparison, when you compare nearly 60,000 square feet of lot area to a smaller lot, such as 11 or 12,000 square feet, it suddenly starts, making sense. The very first time that my client came to me and requested an addition to the house, we basically came up with certain alternatives. We studied it very carefully, and the resultant that we have today, and I'll mention a few items as far as the compatibility is concerned. To me, it's extremely compatible with the neighborhood. What makes it unique with this approach that we have is because of the design follows the contours and the topography of the existing site. And I want to go directly there and I show you why we have taken this approach. And I'm going to begin with a photograph. I want to begin with a photograph that I will show you. Actually, I have these photographs. I just wanted to present this just to go around. It's just a photograph. Panoramic view of existing lot area there and the rear pad area there. As you can see, this is a very unique lot. It's very much different from any other lot that is there. First of all, the site itself is a part of about 6 lots that are size-wise in comparison. They're much larger than any other lots that surrounds it, especially lots that are below foothill. You can see from the neighborhood comparison. As far as the size of the lot is concerned, they just fade away. The FAR, which shows the floor area ratio, you can see that we are allowed to go maximum FAR of 30%, but in this case we have actually only 11%. When we saw the existing lot, what it made sense to us to have the addition instead of going to the second floor of the existing house is to take advantage of the double pad, if you will, to see there. We have just about a 9 to 10 feet of difference of level between the two pads, and that's where we are reasoning this thing, because bulk of our addition, it happens in the basement and it's in the below of the existing house itself. The reason that this is considered a brand new building is because we have to go below the existing house. Truly, we need to have to move more than 50% of the combined exterior walls and the roof itself. But overall massing of the building is going to remain the same. I want to also talk about the height, because that also has to do compatibility. Compatibility is just not numbers comparing larger houses to small houses, but it is compatibility involves the height of the building, the massing of the building, the length of it, the setbacks, how much open area is generated or is between the houses, if you will. In this case, we are using exactly the same location of the existing house. Existing house, it's a one-story building, and we need to make some adjustments, obviously, to it. But nevertheless, we are not expanding the house beyond edge of the slope. So basically, we are building in between, right on top of the same location that we have the existing house right now, is on the upper level of the pad. Now, the second story that goes below the existing house, that will facilitate the lower pad for our recreation purposes. And that's very natural. When you look at the pictures, you can see that there is a lower pad there that it's about 40 feet away from the edge of the slope. And so by doing this, we are actually designing and accommodating a basement, if you will, which all three sides will be under below grade, and only on the front facade, if you will, you will have windows there. And internally, we are connecting those two levels together. So if by any chance anyone is supposed to be seeing this building from outside, the visible portion would be the upper level, not the below level that we are proposing. So the upper level, rightfully asked, one of the members asked, what is the height of it? So existing building, it's a 9-foot plate, one-story building with a 14-12 slope. So I would imagine that it's not going to be more than 13 or 14 feet in height. And what we did there, we basically kept whatever the massing of, if you will, of the first level is we have. And what we've done, we have created certain roof levels to more articulate the roof areas. So when you go to the center, where you have an element in the center, which is our living room actually, that is the highest point that we have. That highest point is 28.6 from the pad area. Now it's not from obviously the front entry area, because the project is actually first visible from the private drive that you're coming in. So from there, you're just going to have 15 feet, I believe, and we've indicated on our elevations. But overall height, technically, you need to measure it from the very bottom, where actually is your swimming pool level. So if you're taking it from there, it's 28.6 to the topmost elevation, which is only in the center element. On the other elements, as you can see on the sides, which we have broken down, those elements are actually less. So for only the span of perhaps about 30 feet, we have a 28.6 technically height. And from the private driveway, if you're looking at it, it's going to be measuring up to about maybe 16 or 17 feet. I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but that's what it is, more or less. So to say what the height of the building is, right in the middle of it is 28.6 maximum. We are allowed in this zone to go 32 plus the height, plus the roof area. If we go a certain sloped roof, then we can go maximum 35 feet, which we are definitely below. We are staying below the maximum height elevation. Now, if you view it obviously from down the slope, it's going to be different. When you're looking from the private driveway, it's going to be different. Private drive is going to be the first entrance and your visible portion of it when you're coming in. The building is going to look like just one-story building. As you can see in the north elevation, it's still a one-story building. What we have done, you can notice that we used to have 3-car garages, but now we have only 2-car garages. 2-car garage visible. The reason is that when we consulted with the staff, we went back and forth, we entertained our options. What we did, we came up with a 4-car garage, which is in tandem. What that did to us, we had to reduce the size somewhat, but also gave us the opportunity of keeping the same distance of the clear distance behind the garage door, which was one of the comments that the previous DRB proceedings they have asked us to do. So what we are doing is that front of the building, from the private drive, we're still observing that 15-foot setback. We're still keeping the same distance from the garage door to the driveway that it comes up. Notwithstanding, across from the driveway, which is part of our lot, we have another area there, which is a flat area, which is actually could be used for the parking, and it has been used for parking before. However, when we're talking about the additional the square footage, as a matter of fact, it's in the depth of it, not necessarily on the length of the project itself. And last time we had submitted a comparison of the 2 footprints of the proposed and the existing one for your information, so you'll be able to see it. So overall, I'll be available for any comments or any, information that you would ask, and if you have any questions. But to us, compatibility is just not numbers. We have to look at the entire project, if it's fitting in the neighborhood, as far as the style is concerned, the height, the massing, the setbacks, the open the space that it creates, and frankly, if you are considering the square footage, I think we should consider the square footage of the first level, not the lower level, because lower level technically it is a basement in my view, because it's not going to be visible whatsoever. Yes.
Yes. Since we had the time limit, and we're going to try to keep everybody within the time limit today,
I'll be available.
At this point, I'd like to see if we have questions for the architect, specifically of how things might have evolved from the last hearing till now, or any other questions that you might have.
I have a quick question. There were some conditions that the board put on at their approval. Were those acceptable to the applicant?
Absolutely. We have actually, in fact, we have adjusted one of our plans. What we did was actually, this particular plan doesn't show it, but in a later version that we submitted, you can see that the front of the deck, because the concern was not to mimic the shape of that octagon, if you will, to go straight, and that's what we've done, and it's quite all right for us. And since then I've changed it and made it a straight line rather than having to more, announcing that shape per se. Because it was one of the members, I think it was Mr. Zarifian, that he had a concern about that, which it's okay with us. We're going to do that. I have actually drawn it that way. So all three conditions are okay with us.
So the adjustment you've made is reflected on these plans?
It's not reflected there, no. And I can say what the adjustment I made. You see the terrace that it comes and it makes an octagon shape. Can I approach and I can just quickly tell you?
And the pointing stick is right there, Mr. Zarabian. As you walk in, next to Mr. Insua.
Thank you. What we did, this was the issue because we had this shape here and we didn't want to necessarily mimic this one because it emphasizes more of a verticality. That was your concern. So what we did, we actually came over here and then made this thing straight. So it sticks out like this deck over there, and this is 90 degrees rather than having it chamfered. So it's not chamfered. Instead of having it chamfered, and it's just basically 90 degrees. But it's still, you see that horizontal line over there and a horizontal line there. And that was what the issue was. And then the second comment was about our corbels or the supports. And to make it more contemporary, you suggested to remove it. And I talked to my client, and we're okay with it. We can remove it. I had put that there as an extra detail, and especially when it's cantilevered more. To me, it made sense to have it underneath it.
So it's not really a corbel that you apply, it's an emphasis of the rafter coming through or the ridge beam coming through, the large timber coming through.
You mean this?
Yes.
It's like a support. If, like for instance, in ranch homes, if you have a more than, let's say, 24 inches overhang, you would put some sort of support there. Yeah. So that's what it is. It's just a support. I think I've shown it on the profile.
Like
it's like a kicker. It's like a kicker.
So it's not a corbel, it's more of a kicker that you remove.
Yeah, just a kicker. And that's what we've done there, so just to emphasize that this thing is an overhang area there. Yeah. And that was it. I mean, either way, we were okay with it, but we could have.
But those, and for instance, on this building east elevation, this feature still is there, or those got removed as well?
Like I said, I've spoken to my client, and we can remove it either way.
Either way.
It depends on, I mean, to us, this is what we like to do, because it presents a little bit more detail, but I believe the comment was to make it more contemporary looking. So.
I think it was a consideration. I don't think that was a condition.
It was a consideration.
It was just a consideration, so.
Right.
But other than that, and the materials are the same. I mean, we have a copper roof, standing seam copper roofs that is going to return, and very high quality materials.
Could you point out the plot that shows the existing footprint with your new footprint?
Yes, I'm trying to find wherever that is, because last meeting proceedings, we had that. It was a separate sheet.
That you put up later that came in the meeting. I watched the tape, but I didn't see any of the footage.
Yeah, I mean, it was the existing, which was taken from the survey, the perimeter, and we superimposed on it. And it exactly shows that in certain areas, because of articulating more the walls, we're sticking out. This is an old version.
That's the first application.
That's the first version, which was a much larger house. So even this, you can see that this was turned, the garage was turned, and it was, was much larger. But what we did, we actually cut that, so it became shorter. So when you're superimposing there, I think this is the dimension that is actually, we have brought it forward.
What about lengthwise?
Lengthwise is nominal. If you look at it, the garage is exactly the same location, except that this side here is about 6 feet or 5 to 6 feet is that's all. But essentially the house is going to be the same location. From elevation-wise, what we've done, we have made more of a transparent facade, because we decided to have this element and this element, and then to connect them with a glass enclosure here. So when as you would drive, you would be able to see a glimpse of the view, and it won't be all lost. as far as that's
Mr.
concerned.
Robbins, what is the material between the glass on that front entry piece?
We have an
Darker?
exposed, we know that we're going to have a frame there, it's a steel frame, so we're going to expose the frame, and it's going to be clear, painted.
Clear coat?
Yeah, and then also, it's on the sides of it, however, it will be wood, so we have a mixture of wood and the steel together, so it will be all exposed. But you can see we have introduced only two-car garage door, and the rest of it is basically, we're talking about copper roofing, standing seam.
Is it a wood door or is it wood and glass?
No, it's wood. It's wood.
And all the windows are wood windows?
All wood windows.
Do we have any other questions for the architect?
This is the plan that
So,
he was referring to.
Everything within this
Yeah.
is the existing
Exactly.
envelope.
Exactly, that's what I was saying. So right here was the existing garage, and so we're removing that. So this is what we're at.
This is
you might want to maybe point it up so the audience could see it as well on TV, whatever you guys are
What we'll do is
discussing.
we'll go ahead and post that on the board.
And Mr. Insua is hatching the discussion that just took place, which is outlining the existing boundaries of the home superimposed on the proposed.
Yeah, the inside is existing. Well, it doesn't have the garage part. What do you mean it doesn't have the garage part? Isn't the garage, the house is connected to the garage? Are you saying the garage is piano? It does?
So, do we have other questions for the architect? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can I just make one note?
Very quickly.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And so, as the audience has indicated, there is a limited amount of time. We have our other hearing starting at 5 o'clock today. I've counted the speaker cards, and we have 15 speaker cards. And so we have the option of going with a 3-minute or 5-minute option for each speaker. And I think a 3-minute would put us at 45 minutes overall, give or take, which would take us to about 4:45. And we all know we're going to take probably longer than 15 minutes to discuss this. So if it's all right with the board, I would suggest 5-minute time limit for all speakers. And then, of course, we'll have a 5-minute rebuttal by both the applicant and the architect as well.
5 minutes or
5
did you say
minutes.
5 minutes or 3 minutes?
I thought we
As
just,
for the appellant, the rebuttal stage, we could go
no,
with...
but for each of the comments, we're not 3 minutes? I thought that
The
was...
comments are going to be 3 minutes,
Thank
so all
you.
the speakers will
That's
have 3 minutes.
Great, thank you.
And then there's going to be a rebuttal at the end by either party, in which
By
case... By both, so I would suggest 5 minutes for those individuals, so they could have some time to
Gotcha.
get all their thoughts together. So, and we'll go in kind of order as far as everyone that is in favor of the appeal. And so we'll start with there. And so the first speaker is Regina Perry.
16 feet, right? An inch is 16 feet. So that's 8 feet.
Okay, I'm Regina Perry, and I live at 1720 Allen, which is just on the other side. I think the main thing is, you have a mandate to make houses compatible to the neighborhood, and this is definitely not even remotely compatible. If you go to the private road where the front door is, sure, you can see although it's larger, you'll see what looks like a one-story home. But everybody below there on that hill and all the way down to the freeway is going to see that massive thing, which doesn't fit our neighborhood at all in any way, shape, or form. There are two things that I just want to throw out. First of all, on Allen, there is an earthquake fault line, so that can affect things up on the hill. We just had an earthquake. The other thing is, unfortunately, fortunately, we just had Allen got new asphalt for the first time since I've lived there, I think, in 30-some years. And all these huge trucks with their oil and their engines idling and everything would just destroy the asphalt there. So if nothing else, make the applicant re-asphalt all of Allen above Foothill, because it's going to just ruin everything. But still, the bottom line for our neighborhood is this doesn't fit into anything in any way, shape, or form. So I'm definitely opposed to building it. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Myrna Stanley.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and board members. My name is Myrna Stanley, and I want to first advise you that I don't live anywhere close, nowhere remotely near this home. But what raised my concerns is what I perceive as continued inappropriate development in our hillsides. I've heard comments made that numbers don't mean all that much. But if this project is approved, you are big time going to raise the average floor area and lot coverage for this neighborhood, so that, I've got a list of the homes and their lot sizes, and there are other homes that are going to be able to do as this property owner is doing. And I'm not saying he can't enlarge his home, of course not, but I believe that this is excessive. The other concern I have, and I strongly object to the notion that despite this home's excessive numbers, that it's approvable because the first floor is the only thing that's going to be visible and it hasn't changed that much. But with that argument, then the same property owner, because Mr. Zarabian said that he hadn't maxed out his floor area, his lot coverage, he can come back in 5 years and further eviscerate this hillside, build a second basement, as he refers to it, and because nobody's going to see it, he says, because the first story, after all, would not have changed that much. So I believe that this project is very ambitious and significantly excessive for its neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Rosa Fromer?
Rosa Fromer. I live at 1762 Allen. The side of my house faces the private road that leads up to the property, and so we see the present property very clearly from our backyard, and it fits in so well as it is now. It just kind of blends into the topography and a few bushes, and it looks very, very natural, and certainly like part of the neighborhood. I absolutely go along with Mr. Lee and think that he deserves, or we deserve, an appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. Dennis Bremier?
To cut to the chase, regarding
Mr. Budimir, do you mind stating your name for the record?
Okay, Dennis Budimir, I hope you start the clock now. Okay. To cut to the chase regarding staff's and DRB2's justification points. Point number one, quote, the footprint has not been significantly altered. False. The existing home is 2659 square feet, and the proposed upper level alone is 4332. Tell me, how is it possible that the footprint's the same when the upper level is almost double the existing home? Continue, quote, and is compatible with the sizes of the surrounding homes. False. The average is 3,033. Point two, quote, the lower level appears more as a basement. False. A 2,316 square foot basement, it's simply the lower story of a two-story house. Thus, and quote again, thus having minimal impact on the mass of the project. Obviously false. Point three, quote, although the proposed home is larger than many in the area, hold it. False. It is the largest in the area by 1,723 square feet. Quote, continuing, the upper and lower level size is justifiable because of the above average 58,000 and change lot. False. First of all, the lot, quote unquote, is mostly all very steep up and down slopes, which are virtually unbuildable. Their actual building pad is quite small. That must be taken into consideration when you're dealing with hillside lots. Number four, staff again mentions and acknowledges that, quote, the numerical figures of the home size are greater than the neighborhood averages. Also, at the last DRB hearing, some of the board mentioned, quote, numbers don't tell the whole story. how interesting the board and staff utilize the numbers relating to the large lot size, which are patently bogus, as I aforementioned, and they quite easily and willingly negate our numbers as it relates to the very obvious fact of incompatibility vis-a-vis the neighborhood average of 3,000 square feet versus their monstrous 6,648. I might also add with the garage, the square footage balloons to the incredible size of 7,500. Point 5, only, quote, only the upper level will be visible from the private driveway. False. That only relates to the two upper houses above the driveway. I and many others can see the entire project, but obviously we don't count. And finally, in summation, there are still two philosophical camps in the city. There are those who, like us, believe in the viability of the design review ordinance as law, especially pertaining to compatibility. There are others who believe in total property owners' inherent unequivocal rights, the spirit of the law be damned. Finally, there is no way any fair-minded, rational, intelligent, and unbiased person can vote for this project and say it's compatible. Thank you.
Thank you. Julian Budimir?
Mr. Chairman, DRB Commissioners, my name is Julianne Budimir and I live on Ransom Road. The staff states that the project meets the floor area ratio with a 58,850 square foot lot with a 6,648 square foot house and a 4-car garage. But with a non-cohesive property, it is difficult to get the proper perspective of how the structure will sit on the lot. Historically, Glendale has had extreme abuses to the building code where topography site plans had the stamp of an engineer, but when the job started, it didn't fit or work on the site. Such examples in the city records are the infamous Eltavar that actually grew in thousands of square feet through the years that was being built. Second, we have the infamous Harrington Road where it had a steep driveway that no car could drive into the garage, and after anguishing in the city council, they had to literally tear out the garage, bulldoze into the below the house, subterranean a garage under it at great expense and problems. Currently, we have a project at 2312 East Chevy Chase Drive that is a troubled project unable to go forward. The neighbors here today don't want this to happen in our neighborhood. Only the final completion will tell the story if it will be fit on the pad, and then it will be too late to be rectified. The 58,850 square foot lot is non-cohesive. It has a steep private drive that has a large curve at the pad site. Along the driveway, the land falls steeply down, and the pad is the only level spot on the land. The composition of the mountains in the area is decomposed granite and is subjected to sloughing during heavy rains. Erosion throughout the hills occur. Special attention is required for the drainage because adjacent to the homes can suffer by the flooding. 58,850 square feet characterizes this lot, but in actuality, it is so steep that it's all considered airspace. I think this will be a difficult project to build, requiring much grading and an unknown amount of steel and cement caissons to complete the project. Thank you for letting me state my views.
Thank you. Philip Keller?
Hello and good afternoon, Chairman and board members and city staff. My name is Philip Keller, and I represent the Northwest Glendale Homeowners Association. I'm on its board, and I serve as its DRB representative. I'm here to speak on some of our continuing concerns we have with this project. As I've said with the last time we were here, I feel this new design is more compatible with the prevailing styles of the neighborhood, which are ranch and mid-century modern styles. On a positive note, there are 2 points that I applaud the architect for, which are the reconfiguring of the garage layout from a double tandem space for 4 cars, or into a double tandem space for 4 cars, reducing the visibility from the street. And secondly, the idea to tuck square footage under the house, I think, is a good way to address this design. Although we feel these are positive and needed improvements to this project, Northwest Glendale Homeowners Association still cannot at this time, unfortunately, support the project due to its continuing mass and incompatible scale with respect to the surrounding neighborhood homes. This proposal still comes in at a huge 6,648 square feet, although this is a 306-foot reduction in size from the first submittal. It is still 219% larger than the neighborhood average, as you've heard before, which is 3,036 feet. 219% cannot in any way be considered compatible with the surrounding homes. Taking into account with the proposed length of nearly 140 feet long, we feel that the structure is still too dominant for that section of the hillside and the neighborhood area. On size alone, the project does not meet the spirit of the city's neighborhood guidelines regarding size, scale, mass, and bulk. Plain and simple, reduce the size of the house. It's a good design, but it should just be scaled back. If the size of this project were reduced by 25% or down to 4,986 square feet, it would at least be brought within reach of the neighborhood's next largest home, which is 4,925 square feet. A 5,000 square foot house would still provide a very large, ample living space, giving the applicant a very comfortable lifestyle while still maintaining responsibility to the neighborhood to deliver a home that is scaled compatibly. Northwest Glendale Homeowners Association recommends that you return the project for further redesign on this point. We do strongly feel that this project's talented architect could quickly and easily make this type of modest scale reduction in the design and still complete the project in a timely manner for the applicant, and it would fit in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Of course. The speaker. Have you,
Yes.
or your board, seen the plan that we just saw, which is the overlay of the footprint of the house now versus what it's going
I
to be?
haven't seen that one, no.
Okay, you may want to take a look at it, because a lot of the square footage that they're adding is in depth, not length.
Well, I have considered that element, and what that still does, given the span of the back view of the house, which is the majority view of this property as it faces the rest of the street and adjacent homes below, still gives you a large light source with the floor-to-ceiling windows. I think a reduction that I'm proposing would be in shortening the length a little bit, but not taking out the underneath footprint, I think would achieve what we feel would be appropriate.
So if you look at they just handed you that plan.
Yes, I see that right
so
here.
So the portion that's being added to the footprint is on the left side of
Correct.
the house.
Correct.
So in other words, don't do that, but to keep the depth, you have an objection to the depth?
I think the depth is a good way to give them that close to 5,000, my proposal, square footage, and keep it underneath. I think the thing you don't want to do, and the architect has rightly done so, is expand the footprint of the house through further grading on this minimal surface area on the top of the hill.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the preview of that.
Mr. Dick Murray?
Afternoon, Mr. Chair, panel members, staff. I'm Dick Murray, president of the Chevy Chase Estates Association. I'm here to support the appeal filed by Mr. Lee. His excellent presentation today clearly makes the case that the board should grant the appeal and deny the application. There's a little of substance that I can add to his remarks, but I'd like to elaborate on several points. First, I cannot overemphasize that the municipal code requires that every discretionary decision made by city boards, commissions, and administrators shall take several factors into consideration. Compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood in terms of size, scale, bulk, mass, and site layout. Recognize you're not requested to consider compatibility. You're mandated to find the project compatible. Or you must either deny it or impose conditions that will make it compatible. The proposed project is a two-story home comprised of 6,648 square feet plus a four-car garage. That's massive. It's over 7,500 square feet. It doesn't substantially comply with the code. It doesn't even reasonably comply with the code. Let's get basic. No matter how the applicant and staff try to tweak or spin it, this is a massive home that's over twice as large as any in as the neighborhood average. Further, of the 16 or 17 homes in the neighborhood surveyed, which were submitted by the applicant, by the way, it's the only two-story home. Yet the DRB and staff would have you believe that a house is twice as big and with twice as many stories is compatible. That conclusion defies logic. The DRB exceeded its authority. In conclusion, what gives our association so much concern, and should concern everybody in the city who looks to our staff to ensure responsible development, is the precedent that this case will set. If you approve this application, every builder in the city will say, why can't I build a house that's twice as large as the neighborhood average? Why can't I put up a two-story house in a one-story neighborhood? You let them do it at 1749 Allen Avenue. Don't be foolish and establish such a dangerous precedent. You and all of Glendale will regret if you do. Thank you.
Of course. Mr. Murray, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Thanks for coming out. I'm just trying to kind of jot down a lot of the objections so that I can discuss them. It seemed like the rep from Northwest Glendale didn't have a problem with the idea of being two-story. In fact, he complimented the architect for tucking the square footage under the house. But you have a different view? You think that it shouldn't be a two-story?
Reasonable people will differ.
Okay. Oh, that's can I quote you on that?
You may. And associations will differ.
Okay.
The argument will come up, I'll tell you, Mr. Friedman, the argument will come up in the context of the precedent. You took a house that is two stories, no matter how you tweak it, but a little underneath, maybe it doesn't look all of 2 stories. It is, in fact, a two-story house. It is fact that that's the only two-story house in the neighborhood. It is fact that this house is huge compared to every other house in the neighborhood. That's a precedent that should not sustain itself, in my opinion.
And Mr. Murray,
Yes.
You're well aware of the codes and you're well aware of hillside design and architecture because you've been involved with the Chevy Chase over the many years.
Number of years.
I just want you to elaborate on that second-story comment. It seems as though you're objecting to the case merely because it is a two-story and the size. Putting the size aside, do you have a problem with the two-story aspect of it? Because from your comments, it seemed as though you were strictly against a two-story home.
I am if it appears to be a two-story home from other viewpoints. And I looked at the project, I looked at the land, and I think that a number of people are going to be looking at more than one story. And I'll let the neighbors who know better than I relate to that.
And you're well aware that it is within the jurisdiction and the code and so forth to build a two-story home in the city of Glendale.
Quite aware of it. But it's incompatible to do it where there are no others. Compatibility is the issue, Mr. Chair.
And you don't
Compatibility.
And you don't think it is wise or even capable for an architect to design a compatible two-story building within a neighborhood and still be
in a neighborhood that everything else is one story?
Mm-hmm.
It means it's incompatible. And by the very nature.
Very good. I just wanted to get a peek inside your brain. Thank you. Reverend Mike Yavor.
Good afternoon. My name is Father Reverend Mike Javor, and I literally am the new kid on the block. I just closed escrow on a house on Ransom Road. And so I am, like I said, literally the new person in the neighborhood. I've lived in Glendale and Burbank for about 30 years and have purchased 2 homes in Burbank, and now this is my second purchase in Glendale. And I have been searching for about 5 years for a home in an area that's what I was looking for, my, let's say, dream location, and I believe I did find it on Ransom Road. And being a new homeowner and discovering this project, I was here, and I am here today, just out of concern. I wanted to hear the facts of the project. I wanted to hear the facts of the appeal. And my concern is twofold. One is that I certainly, nor do anybody, want to rain on someone else's parade of their dream house. And so that is a very difficult decision, I think, for you to make as a board. But also I'm concerned about the integrity of the environment, the integrity of the neighborhood. And the neighborhood that I purchased a home in is a neighborhood that I would like to see continue in its visual appearance, in its integrity. Hearing today the incompatible and compatibility words, it definitely is a gray area. And where you draw the line is going to be obviously up to you, because it is a gray area. 200 and some % seems to be stretching compatible in my mind, just in terms of sheer size. But I would say that my concern as a new homeowner is that I want to find a place in Glendale, to be happy in this neighborhood, to retain the integrity and the visual appeal of the area. So I'm here today to voice, from the little that I know so far, to voice my support to really put the brakes on or to slow the process down on this project. And I wish you a lot of luck in trying to determine what ultimately will be considered compatible for the beautiful Glendale hillside that exists on that Allen area. So thank you again for allowing me to at least voice my concern today and to be part of the proceedings.
Thank you. Beth McDevitt, or McDevitt T? McDevitt, I apologize.
Yes, I'm a neighbor of the project. Beth McDevitt is the name. I'm a neighbor of the project down on the corner of Mountain and Allen. So as these neighbors come down the hill to be part of our community, they will be driving right by my house. And I could save you a lot of time by just saying to what my other neighbor friends have said, ditto. I really do think this house is far too large. But as uncomfortable as I am with coming before you and speaking publicly, I have for some time, and I've been in my home for 35 years, wanted to fight for the character of the neighborhood. You know, the people in our area, we like our little Kenneth Road village. We like El Miradero tucked in up against the Chaparral. We like the character homes of Cumberland Heights, and even over where we are, where there are so many small, probably just post-World War II homes. And to me, this looks like someone wants to build a manor house on top of the hill overlooking our little cottages, which, by the way, I'm sure you've heard, are not all that small, and in fact, many are very, very lovely. Another point that I would like to make to you is that I was really quite upset when they were talking about compatibility, which is something very important to me. And I believe it was one of the staff people that said, well, you know, maybe this house shouldn't be considered part of that neighborhood because it is not lined up with the other houses on the street. It is up a private road and really sits away from the rest of the neighborhood. Well, I find that a very dangerous thing. That is part of our neighborhood. Glendale does not need private, elite enclaves or private neighborhoods where people can go and avoid such important codes as compatibility. This house is far too large. It is far too large for our area, and I don't know how many adults are going to be living in it, but certainly it will certainly have many trips down the hill past the rest of our cottages, and we think it's really much too large. So I hope you will take that into consideration and preserve the character of our neighborhood, as well as compatibility. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Margaret Hammond?
Mr. Chair, maybe I'd like to suggest
Of course,
that maybe...
do you have a question?
No, I just like to point out that we should probably count and see how many are left to speak and kind of how much time it will reserve for discussion. One more check.
I think that's a good idea. Margaret Hammond is the last speaker in favor of reversing the decision, and then as far as the group that is in favor of the project and its design,
We're definitely bumping
9.
5 o'clock.
I'm sure DRB 1 doesn't mind staying a little late.
we have 9.
We'll get back.
9.
Years ago, I would not have.
And so since we've already granted them 3 minutes,
Yeah. Okay. No, I just wanted to kind of
understand, gauge where we're at. We have 9.
Okay.
And then we have the
That's-
2 rebuttals on top of that.
All right. It's fine with me. I just wanted to point out.
Ms. Hammond?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the panel. My name is Margaret Hammond. I am a 50-year resident of this city, and my main concern is my love for my city. And I believe that all neighborhoods, whether it's Adams Hill or north or south, east or west, all should be retained as much as possible. That is why we all moved to Glendale, was because of the character of Glendale. I am speaking in favor of the appellant, Mr. Lee. I believe that the speakers have shown just cause to oppose this proposed project, as it has been shown. The building should be kept compatible with the neighborhood. We go over this again and again, that's why we end up with Hiltons in the middle of cottages. I've had it happen on my own neighborhood, in my own hillside. Horrible, horrible examples if you go down there. I believe that if there were a 25% cutback, a scale down of this house, to less than 5,000, it would be more compatible. After all, doubling the size of a house in a neighborhood of 3,300 square feet homes is unbelievable to me. It's just outlandish. I am definitely in opposition to the inappropriate building of huge homes in hillside areas. It must be controlled. It has unbelievable consequences as far as my own area. The parking, the streets are so clogged you can't even get up and down them. For me to even get here today, coming down the streets with the traffic and the parking on both sides, you have to wait for a car to go by and then take your chances on getting out. And this is on Boynton Street, just below Chevy Chase, for instance. And this is the consequences of overbuilding, of allowing huge homes and with parking, not enough parking usually, not in this case, but I'm saying there are consequences of overbuilding and allowing huge homes, aside from the appearance and what it does to the neighborhood in general. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Eddie Galstian.
Hi, everybody. My name is Eddie Galstian. I'm the owner. Me and my wife, we're the owners of 1749 Allen. We've owned this property many years. And for over 10 years, the place was vacant. We kept it that way because we wanted to build our dream home. Everybody says that this is their city. How about us? Our 3 kids were born in this city. My wife is a physician, does work in this city. We're taxpayers in this city. We love this city the same as much as that. Ahmed, Butemer, Mrs. Butemer, everybody here, we're citizens as well. We understand. Compatibility is a word that a lot of people don't know what really the meaning is. That's why we hired one of the best architects, that he's very knowledgeable. I hope that we could finalize that, and we could start with construction rather than waste time. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I believe that there was a question earlier from the board regarding the handout that was submitted.
Oh, yes, the pictures.
So if you'd like to ask that question now while still have time available, perhaps.
Yes. By the way, this 6 pages of pictures that I've taken, it clearly, I pointed out who lives where and what impact does it have. The only place that is very noticeable, as you see on your right side, is Mr. Butemere's place, and I put it over there, Mr. Butemere's mansion, because it looks like a mansion. It's a very pretty construction. And I've taken this picture from western off of the bridge at 42208. And the third page, if you look at it, it shows the breakdown and the sphere of the 300 to 500 feet that is all lined out, that they have the jurisdiction of giving a voice. And on the fourth page, there are all the tenants that I personally have gone one by one and spent an enormous amount of my time, as well as their time, to explain and show the pictures and what we're going through. They're getting their signatures and votes. The last page, there's another page in here that also, it kindly shows all the owners of the buildings as well as mine. And it's very clear. I'm not blocking anybody's view. I'm not showing a massive construction. I'm not bothering anybody. And why shouldn't me and my wife build this building of our dream? And the last one, there are several other pages. There were some owners of the buildings, parcels that they weren't able to come because they were out of country, and they have given letters of their consent.
Mr. Goldstein, this picture, what does it illustrate?
I'll try to. May I come down?
Of course. But you can't speak over here because we won't be able to record it.
This is that picture over there. As you see, the picture clearly shows out the level difference from where my patio is and where the backyard is.
What house is that? Who's I don't know.
You guys want to see it? Do we have other questions?
Do you know whose house?
It's just right in front of, on the right side of my residence.
I believe that house is actually in Burbank, I think.
It is, on the border of...
On the border,
Oh, it's off of Thurber?
yeah.
Right. So it's not included in the neighborhood plan, okay.
And in the back also, there's another picture, if you turn around. Turn the poster around. I can make it the easiest way to understand.
I don't think we've ever had so many pictures submitted with any project since I've been on the board.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
We have a lot of
They tell
photos.
1,000 words.
Yeah.
Our next speaker is Anna Galfarian. Did I pronounce the last name correctly?
Hi, my name is Anna Galfarian, and I am one of the owners of the house at 1749 Allen. And I'm sure you have seen my face quite a few times, and we have been over this project for many times, and it's getting really both emotional and difficult in every sense. We have purchased the property in '87, and ever since that time, our goal was to improve the house, to upgrade the house, to grow in that house. And if you look at the left side of this room, the left side is growing. And the house that we are planning to expand is going to be for a larger family of 4 plus probably parents that are ailing and will need to reside with us. So it's not a matter of one person living in a 6,000 square feet or one person living in 4,000 square feet. This is Second time, we're trying to remodel our house. Initial remodeling plan were in 1995, when we had an architect who was brilliant, who was building houses in Malibu and Santa Monica, but he was not very familiar with the city codes. That's why at this time we had 2 years of interview to find an appropriate architect who is talented, knowledgeable with the city codes. That's why we hired Mr. Zohrabian, who has done a fabulous job. He has spent hours and days going over and trying to convince mostly myself about different issues that we should consider. And we do know the size lot. We knew the maximum we can go to 9,000 square feet based on the city codes, based on FAR. But again, that was not our goal. Our goal is to make house that we can live in. We can live, work, function. We're not for mansionization. We're not for being manor. We're for living comfortably. Now, there were numerous meetings. We are trying to go through those plans. This is already our third year. We have hired Mr. Zohrabian 3 years ago. Regional Design Board review was in October 2007. And this is we're talking August of 2008. We have had numerous cutbacks. We had numerous changes. We have had letters that we have sent to neighbors. We have walked through the neighbors' houses. We have asked opinions. We have handed letters to try to be as sensitive to neighborhood needs and as possible. There is no way we can please every human being and go by their subjective opinions of compatibility. We have met with the city, and I don't have to tell you how strict is the city of Glendale and how strict and what reputation city of Glendale Planning Department has. And you know that Planning Department does their due diligence before even we appear anywhere at any design board review, etc. We have had numerous visits with the city architect, and I personally compromised on style of the house. We have done what we could, what's humanly possible, to make it sensible, to make it comfortable for us, to be respectful to the neighborhood needs, and to be considered. Now, we could have built the second home residence, which our CCNR, when we purchased our house, would allow. But again, we felt it will be really not nice to our neighbors, not below, not behind us. It will be massive, it will be imposing. That's why we asked Hamlet to look for other options. And this is where the plan came. Because of the lot shape, you can tuck in whatever space you want for the kids' gym, etc., underneath. So this is how we try to solve the problem. The style of the house, we have tried, we went back and forth again, we tried to match with the neighborhood. Yes, I agree. Per square footage, it will be larger if you look all over. But if you look at the main floor, again, the footprint is about 4,300. And we did demonstrate during the last design board review that even with the zoom lens that is taken from the neighbor's yard, the area is barely visible and very well camouflaged. And we do know we are going to do extensive landscaping. We are going to make it beautiful both for ourselves as well as our neighborhood. We are not here to offend any of the neighbors, to impose on them. But again, we live in 2008. We need to grow. We need to, be able to practice our beliefs and our needs. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Annette Galassian?
Hello to all the DRB board members. My name is Annette Galstian, and I will be a resident at 1749 Allen. Firstly, this has been an exhausting process for everyone involved, but I can say honestly that we have made every effort to make a beautiful home, minimize the bulk or mass, which it does not have any bulk, and please our neighbors, as well as having the house integrate with the neighborhood and the ranch-style home. That's why we changed the style originally to a completely different traditional ranch-style home. Yes, this house is going to be larger than any other house that is currently in the neighborhood, but so what? This house is on a very large lot. We are allowed to make such a big house. There is room to make a big house, and this house would not be overbearing. Our addition to the house is mainly going to be a basement, virtually a basement that's going to be dug into the mountain and really not visible much more than it is today. So we're not building above, we're not building, too much in wide space. But it is going to be a bigger home, and I have nothing to say about that. Again, we live in 2008, it's almost 2009. Yeah, some people moved here in 1957, 1945, whatever. We're not trying to digress into society. We want to accommodate our growing needs as time progresses, and so we want a more livable home that's up to our needs in present-day society. Also, there was mention about previous fault lines and mountain granite and drainage issues, and all I have to say is I think that's something for a geologist to discuss, and that shouldn't be up to anyone's discretion who doesn't have the appropriate degrees. And lastly, I think this is a beautiful project. It's very well executed. Our architect did a great job. And I think it's a future beautiful home, and it'll be, an exemplary model in Glendale. Thank you. And finally, I would just like to apologize on behalf of some of those who have opposed this project, since I feel like they have threatened some of the design review boards and taught you what your authority and what your responsibilities are. I think you very well know that, and I don't think anyone else should comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Amy Galstian.
My name is Amy Galstian, and I am in favor of this project. So basically, the design of the house is obviously going to be different from the outdated homes in the immediate area, simply because those older homes were built in the 50s or 60s. Given that it's 2008, the best we can do is create a modern interpretation of the older ranch-style homes, as we have done. True, the property may be 219% larger than the other homes in the area. However, the lot size is 58,850 square feet, almost triple the average lot size of the homes in the immediate area. Given the larger lot size of 1749 Allen, it's completely appropriate to construct a house proportional to the lot size. The opposing parties have simply created statistical figures comparing the absolute extremes of the neighborhood, yet they neglect to mention that a majority, 4 of the 6 homes in the immediate area, are in favor of the project. The size of the proportion of the property on a private road cannot be compared to the smaller homes with smaller lots that are not on the private road. In reality, given the lot size and square footage of 1749 Allen, it's more comparable to the other 2 homes on that private road. The basement we are constructing below the present house is just that, a basement. It is completely covered by trees and shrubbery, making it practically unnoticeable. The only visible area will be the top floor, which makes the visibility of the property virtually unchanged. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Vahe Hagopian.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, members of the board, my name is Vahe Hagopian. I'm a retired architect, actually a retired professor in architecture field, and I'm talking about in favor of this project. I'm not going to talk about the ranch style, which is a southern, typical American southern style. It's a beautiful style. I'm sure everybody knows about that. I'm not going to talk about the size of the building because it fits in all 4 national codes of our OS. We have the UBC, we have CABO, BOCA, and SPC. And this building, by all these 4 codes, fits in the place. The only thing which I would like to mention, the footprint of the building is 43,000 square feet or 4,300 square feet. If for the gym, instead to be a basement, they would build this part on the columns, nobody would say anything. The gym would be an open space gym. Right now, they just enclose that open space to have the gym enclosed. This is all I want to say. But again, I would say this is a beautiful project, and it will bring lots of beauty to that neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Marek Terhovesepians.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Terosepian. I've been a resident of Glendale for most of my life. I've grown up here. I've gone through the public school system. And my wife and I we purchased our home a few years ago in Glendale, so I'm a proud resident. Reason why I'm coming here is because I remember about 2 years ago, one of my friends in law school, we're going to school together, and he said, I told him, I bought a house in Glendale and I want to remodel it and make it bigger. And he said, are you crazy? He goes, they're not going to let you, because his uncle had a problem with that situation, where he had a home and he wanted to make it bigger and better, but they did not allow him. So the reason why I'm here is if we take this project and we put it anywhere in Glendale, we're going to have the same problem. People are going to come and complain because it's their neighborhood. But we got to remember, like they said, it's 2008 and 2009. Other communities and other cities have built houses that are bigger. My own cousin just built a house 9,000 square feet in Tarzana. And, I know it's a little bit larger than this one, but, he didn't have all these problems, and didn't take him 15 years and had to give up and come back again. It took him about 1.5 years to go through the whole thing. So, I'm in favor of this project because I think it's going to maybe promote people to look at Glendale and, build bigger homes, and maybe we are ready for a change from the, traditional. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Christine Harabetian.
Hi, my name is Christine Harabetian, and I'll also be speaking on behalf of Alina Markart because she had to leave. I was born and raised in Glendale and have lived in Northwest Glendale all my life. And personally, I just want to say it seems like the reason we're all here is because it's just a matter of opinion and it's change. And everyone is always uncomfortable with change. So it just seems that it seems that because the residents are used to one thing, they don't want something else. It's understandable, but at the same time, it's not fair for the current residents that want this project to go forward for that not to go for them. They have every right to do so. If it falls within the codes, they have the right to make their dream house. So now, whether it might be a little uncomfortable at first, if the residents can just go along with it because there's no reason why not to, they can, over time, they'll see that they actually will probably like it, and it will make, like other people have said, it will make the area nicer. And I personally would be very fond to live in an area that has a beautiful house. It'll make the property value of where I live nicer. It's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. And the street that I live on, Thompson, a lot of houses have been recently becoming two-story houses. And of course, in the beginning, we were all single-story homes. But after one by one, they became double stories, two-story homes, and now we really like it. And it just makes the property look nicer, it makes our neighborhood look nicer. So I just think it's a matter of opinion. Everyone's going to have an opinion all the time. So if the current residents are allowed to do this, then let them do it. At the same time, Glendale is very up and coming, and that's the main reason why a lot of us young people want to stay here instead of moving over to, say, the west side. And say the Americana, like when that project was going to come out, there was a lot of people that were against it. But now that it's here, it seems that majority of people love it, and it's actually made Glendale such a nicer place, and it's actually a place to hang out in, whereas before we used to go to Burbank or Pasadena. So that was difficult too. People were against it, and that was change, but we got used to it, and over time we've grown to love it. And I personally was one that was skeptical of the project, and now I'm there more than I'm not. So I just think that we should give the current residents of 1749 the opportunity to build their home, because they have the right to love their home as much as the other residents will have the right to love, as they call it, their cottages. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Sean Norhadian.
Good evening. My name is Sean Norhadian. I live at 1759 Allen, a direct neighbor of the property in question. I'm going to keep it simple and to the point. I think this building, this project is very lovely, very appealing for the area. It creates value for all the neighborhood. I know a lot of people bring up compatibility as an issue of size, but another aspect is that if this project is approved, and I'm hopeful that it will be, it's going to create a lot of value in the neighborhood that otherwise it would take much longer time. Not saying that it wouldn't happen, but I think that by accepting change and going with it, Glendale is changing, and as I'm sure all of you know, not to change would be more prohibitive and inhibitive of Glendale as a city as a whole and its neighborhood. I appreciate that many people enjoy the traditional homes and being very conservative, but at the same time, not everyone is similar, and I believe that Glendale is changing from that traditional conservative approach to a little more modern approach, which I think this house fits perfectly into. And as a closing remark, once again, I live directly on top of it. If I felt size was an issue, I'll be one of the main individuals to voice a concern. And obviously, since the height isn't changing significantly, if not materially at all, I don't have an issue to halt this individual from achieving his dream house and living the American dream. So once again, thank you very much for your time.
I have a question for you. Sure. Is that your house that has the pool?
The one on top.
The one on top. Are you the property owner?
My family is.
Your family is. Is your family considering expanding their home?
Not at the current moment, no.
Not at the current moment. Okay, thank you.
Next speaker is Alina Markian.
She had to leave,
She had to
actually.
leave. And the last speaker card for this appeal is Arthur Gasamanyan.
Good afternoon, everyone.
If you would state your name for the record.
My name is Arthur Gasamanyan. I live right above this house where the pool is. I'm the one, okay. And I've been attending every meeting since they started with the design review board. And thank you for design review board, because initially it was a completely different design, and because of you, it was upgraded with the time being, and we have a beautiful design to be built. I have no objection at all but to favor this project, and it's upon you to accept the design of the house. And I don't think that house built there will bother anybody but some neighbors with their dark life that objecting this project for 15 years. Because if you look at the house, one of these neighbors apparently that present, the only way he's going to see this house, if he climbs on his roof, turns around toward the mountains, and maybe even that time he will not see the house because all these bushes and trees that's surrounding the house. The other gentleman, I see his house every day. In front of me is like a morgue. I mean, if you see this house, it's a big, huge, that's a sore in the eye. And I will sacrifice, I will rather pay to the city and have everyone over there from here to be present personally and view with your own eyes from the bottom and tell me if you can see Edic's house. It's not visible. And especially the floor that's going down, it won't be visible at all. You can't even see his house on the upper floor. So I don't know why people are objecting when it's a gorgeous design, and it's upon you to make the final decision. I am with the favor of the project.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question also? Yours is a house with a pool?
Yes.
Are you the property owner? Are you the property owner?
I'm the owner.
Are you contemplating doing any remodeling or expansion on your property?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet.
Thank you.
You never know, but not at this time.
Not now. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we have no other speaker cards. So is there anybody else that wishes to speak on this case? If so, you could come up and then fill out a card afterwards. So I take there's no more.
Just a note to the board, we received 2 letters. One was from Frank and Nancy Bonton, who reside at 1527 Western Avenue. This is in support of the project. This was also on the dais before the meeting. As well as a letter from Martin Clark, who lives at 1644 Allen Avenue, and this was in support of the appeal, so again, in opposition of the project. So, and also, one last item, there was some concerns raised that this particular property might be within the earthquake fault hazard zone. It has been confirmed that it is not, according to our city safety element. It is not within the earthquake fault hazard zone.
Thank you. And so now, both the architect and the applicant of the appeal are going to have a 5-minute rebuttal. The architect is going to go first, and then we'll have the applicant of the appeal have the last word at it. So, Mr. Zorabians, if you would please approach the bench. You have 5 minutes.
Yes, again, my name is Hamlet Zorabians, 3800 La Crescent Avenue, Suite 209, Glendale. I am the project architect. I don't want to repeat myself and on the points that was mentioned, and I basically discussed it. But one thing that I was going to say that in developing this project and designing it, we had met with the immediate neighbors that we might have impacted them as far as as far as privacy is concerned or the views are concerned and so on and so forth. And all along they've been supportive of the project. The only thing is that we had last time about 15 neighbors that they showed up, which they're not here today. And it's because of the timing, most of them were out of town and they had some pre-engagements. What we did here, especially the immediate neighborhood, the neighbors that we're talking about surrounding our project, I have a map here and signatures of them that they have signed. And I just wanted to just give it to you with another list.
I believe we have that. Yeah.
Well, you might as well give it to us anyways, because you've brought it forward, so we'll just make it part of the record.
Because I was looking at it.
I know we don't have enough time.
Oh, no, this is in addition to what we got.
Yeah, this is
In addition to, I'm sorry, because we did get a list.
But that was before. That page that I just handed in was what we started with. In other words, we from the beginning we were very sensitive as far as the project and how it's going to be developing itself. So anyway, that said, I want to just speak to a couple of points here. One is the facts are that this project is accessed from a private drive. It's not like any other project that you are accessing it directly from the street. It's the fact that that private road is only serving 3 different parcels, only 3 different parcels. And these parcels are, if you look at your neighborhood comparison, in comparison to the other lots, they are much, much larger. We're talking about 60,000, 58,000 and some. So as far as the floor area ratio is, one more time I want to say that we are definitely below that maximum allowable FAR. We have no issue as far as that's concerned, completely meeting the zoning code and allotment. And to me, I have no regrets about this project. I'm not ashamed of it. I think it's a beautiful project to me still. And I've done my best to accommodate everyone's needs and all. And that's why I don't think I'm deliberately, trying to hide this project. This is nothing that is going to be an eyesore to be hidden. I think it's transparent, it's very nice, especially from the entrance. You have a 1-story building where you had there, it's going to be very minimal impact there. From the other side where you have the backyard, we have taken advantage and maximized the lot area, the pad. I'm not going on the slopes, we're not going to have any adverse effect there. There are existing drainage systems that are in place and we're going to be maintaining them. So we're going to be doing our duty. And this project is a nice project. We did not ask for any height increase or anything like this. So to me, it's a very compatible project in the neighborhood. If you look at the neighborhood, there are a lot of houses that are existing and they're run down. We cannot compare this project to that, especially to a smaller houses that are there. I cannot come back here and design a 2,000 square feet, 3,000 square feet house and put it in the middle of a 60,000 square feet area. So it's not compatible that way. I think in compatibility, we should compare it to the similar size lots that are adjacent to it. And it's because even if you go to the CCNR, how this lot was developed, you can immediately see what the intention was. And when there's certain areas of this area here which was designated for 1-story, and that's why you see a lot of 1-story. And there are certain lots were designated for 2-story, and this is one of them. And what I'm trying to say is that even from the inception and what originally they graded these lots, this was the intention. And even if you go go to CCNR, it would spell out, it will say that if there is any addition to this lot, they're suggesting to put it on the lower pad. And we found out that later on, which was, that was intuition. Basically, we saw the opportunity to do it this way, it has less impact. So to me, this project is a completely compatible project, and we have worked on it a lot. This is not just a haphazard design that we just throw in front of you. And I think I'm very glad that the DRB, in preliminary stages, they approved this project to go on with minor issues, and then the DRB was approved it at the final stages. Zoning administrator, in her wording, if you look at the reports of the approval of the driveway, the project is very compatible to the neighborhood, and it doesn't have that much of an impact. And the staff has been abreast of the project. They've been all along supporting the project, and they made certain constructive comments, and which we have taken into consideration where we designed it. So to me, it's a very unique project, and precedence is what people are afraid of. We should not be afraid of that, because we're not setting precedence here. DRB, in my opinion, is to look at each site by site, because each site has a different conditions to it. It's not, you cannot just blanket rule go and say because the size is this way, it's not going to be fitting, because compatibility has many aspects to it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Robbins, I'm always intrigued by CCNRs that were written a long time ago. In fact, every time I get a title report, I'll go through and read it, because it's amazing some of that tidbit of information that's in there, and some of it is, would never fly these days and so forth, such as racial profiling and stuff that they would put in there. Nonetheless, you mentioned something that's very important in my mind. You indicated that this property specifically was stated or designated as a possible two-story within that tract.
Yes.
And in fact, you stated that the lower level, they said it could be two-level, and the lower level should be off of the lower pad. Please elaborate on that, because I believe that's important, because I was not privy to that information. So this is something totally new to me, and so I'd like to...
I don't want to interject at this point, but CCNRs are essentially private matters that are not under the jurisdiction of the zoning code, and so based on what the authority is for the Design Review Board, just to make sure, so yes.
I think that, just so staff understands where I'm coming from, when the CCNRs were drafted for a specific track, the developer or the builder or the community at that point in time had certain intentions and visions. And when we talk about compatibility, we're always comparing what's currently being proposed with what is around it. And so we try to always assimilate with context. And so therefore, when the CCNRs were drafted, I always like to find out these kind of matters, and in this case it was presented in such a way, because it gives us a glimpse of what that body thought was appropriate at that given point in time. And that's what we're discussing today, is compatibility. And so for that reason, I'd like to hear about it, and so it's just a little bit of information.
I didn't mean to suggest that you would take that as just the major point of your approval or disapproval. Knowing that Commissioner Yusua, I know that he has mentioned in many projects that I've seen before that it is important for him what the intention of the grading and the pad, how they have developed, and not to change and alter it in a sense.
Well, and forgive me, I couldn't agree with you more, your statements concerning the CCNRs, that there was an original intent, if you will, that could assist us in understanding the design that may have been in the mindset. So I agree at that level.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so
it was point of conversation that just brought it up.
Try to understand today.
Yes. So anyway, but that again, that I did not submit anything, but that's basically that helped us in developing the project, if you will, to take us to a certain direction that we are in now today. So to me, I think we got to go case by case, and I suggest that. That's all. And I'm sure that you'll be able to judge yourself, through the lines you will see the compatibility issue there. And that's it. That's all I have to say. And you have all the paperwork and the supportive signatures and the statements that we have. Unfortunately, like I said again, they couldn't be here, all of them. They're supporting a neighborhood.
I'd like to see a copy of those That's just, at some point.
Yeah, we can, at some point, I can.
At some point.
Do you
in the
have a
future.
copy of it?
I'll look at it at recess. Well, do we have any other questions for the architect? Because this might be the last time he's up here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lee, you have 5 minutes as a rebuttal. You have the last word on the matter. So please do take your time and sum this up for us.
Okay. The City of Glendale has this proposal listed as a two-story.
Oh, and just for your name for the record, please, I apologize.
Ralph Lee, 1715 Allen Avenue, directly below the project site.
Thank you.
I'm the appellant.
Start your time over. Yes.
The City of Glendale has this proposal listed as a two-story, single-family home, not a single-story building with a basement. I've heard the lower tuck-under 2,316 square foot level referred to as a basement because it has dirt around it on three sides. This is no more a basement because it has dirt around it than this building we are in right now is an arboretum because it has trees around it. It's a misnomer to refer to the 2,316 square foot tuck-under lower level as a basement. It is not a basement, it is the lower floor of a two-story building. The building plans even refer to it as the lower tuck-under level. Not a basement, do not be misled. The Design Review Board ordinance states that the proposal must be compatible with the surrounding existing neighborhood homes. And if I could, the screen just went blank, I wanted to refer to the screen.
Actually,
You got the little mouse?
there you are. If you don't mind, just be very careful. Oh, we've already lost it.
Yeah, you might
so-
need to pan down.
Or full screen, there you go.
There you are.
Continually throughout these discussions, it has been brought to the attention that these lots, I've heard 3 times larger than the neighborhood on the other side. That may well be the case, 58,000 square feet in this case. Guess what? The homes on this side are not 3 times larger than the entire neighborhood, despite the large lot size. These houses average 387 square feet larger than the entire neighborhood as a whole. So we have large lots, but as you can see, small building pads. Oops, I did touch it. in this case. These are large lots, there's no doubt about it. But the houses, as you can see, average only 387 square feet larger than the entire neighborhood. These homes, this proposal is 200% larger than these homes, the average. This proposal is 219% larger than the neighborhood as a whole, the 17 neighborhood homes. That's all I have to say. Simply stated, this proposal is incompatible with the existing surrounding neighborhood homes. 100% of the neighborhood homes are smaller than the proposal, 100%. Now, my opponent has continually referred to the floor area ratio number. That's the only number he has ever stated before you folks, because it's the only number that allows him to be in the ballgame here. When I spoke originally earlier today, I gave you a litany of numbers where this project is considered too large. He has one number to hang his hat on. That's the floor area ratio. And we all know the only reason that this structure is even in the ballgame here is because it's a large lot size. The building pad, if you look at it, is extremely small compared to the lot size. Without the floor area ratio, we would not be here today discussing this. The proposed upper floor alone, and I'll restate this because it's a staggering number, just the upper floor of this proposal is larger than 90% of the existing neighborhood homes. And the DRB is required to consider compatibility. How that can possibly be considered compatible is a tough stretch for me.
Again, to approve such a project is to ignore the spirit and the intent of the Glendale Hillside Ordinance. This proposal is such magnitude with regard to size, scale, bulk, and mass that it renders it incompatible with the existing neighborhood, and it should be reduced in size. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions for the applicant?
At the last hearing, you'd made a comment about the swale or the water flow.
Right.
Is that,
Right.
has that been corrected, at least discussed to your satisfaction?
In regards to?
The water runoff off the property and in affecting your property.
In regard to the new proposal?
Yeah.
He did agree to change the pad in regard to that little runoff problem at the end of the, yes, he did agree to that. That was a condition, and he did agree to that, to my knowledge, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? No?
Okay.
I believe that concludes the public portion of this hearing. And we're going to take a quick 3-minute recess because it was requested, and then we'll come right back, and then we'll basically...
When we come back? That works?
Of course.
There you go. Okay.
I
want to get out of first thing, best dressed.
Okay. For those of you that just watched...
It's freezing on the other side of that wall.
We're on.
Welcome back to Design Review Board 1. We are still discussing 2-PDR-2007-100-AAP, and we took a quick recess, and we've already heard from the public, and what we're going to do is we're going to allow Ms. Friedman a few minutes to summarize what Design Review Board 2 has really gone through in the last few hearings, and then we'll start our internal discussions.
Yeah, and maybe after I do, then maybe Alec wants to as well, because he's the architect and not me. Well, I'll try, and I'll reserve my right to speak later in response to whatever anybody else on the board says. But first, before I get into the meat of the case, I want to say that this is not an easy case for anyone on this board, I'm sure. At least for me, it's not an easy case. And I want everybody to know that I heard everything that was said. And this is one of those cases, and I said it last time and I'll say it again, where there are no bad guys. Everybody has a point of view that, from their perspective, makes a lot of sense. Mr. Murray said that some of these issues that we're dealing with are things that reasonable people can disagree over, and I think that's what's happening here. And I understand the point of the applicant, and I definitely understand the viewpoint of the appellant. The reason I'm on this board was because of hillside development and houses that I thought were incompatible. So I don't take that at all lightly. To me, that's really important, and it's the reason that this board is here. So I'm going to say that first, and then I'll just kind of go down some of the thoughts that I had at the time that we had passed this project the last time. And it's not in any particular order, but I'll just go down some of them. I agree with a lot of what the neighbors said. I don't disagree with anything that they said about compatibility. I think that it's important that houses in the area are compatible, that I understand their point about size, and yet we still, as a board, voted to approve this project. And the reason was that we felt that there are numbers that work either way, depending on your perspective. There's the FAR number, which works on the side of the project, and there's the house size, which absolutely works on the side of the appellant. However, because of the way that the massing is dealt with, because of the unique nature of this lot, we did feel that the numbers in this case, in some ways, don't really tell the whole story, because it's not going to be visible. We felt comfortable that it wasn't going to be visible to the surrounding neighbors as a house of that size, because of the way that it's tucked under, because of all of the things that the architect, has explained. Would I be more comfortable if the house was 1,000 square feet smaller? Yes, but I'm not sure that even if they did that, it would really substantially change the way this house looks from the back, because a lot of the square footage that they're adding is in depth, and I don't think that I'm not convinced that that's going to be visible given the size of the pad as it extends in the back. The neighbors referred several times to it being a small pad, and actually compared to a lot of what we see, it's really not that small of a pad. They actually have a substantial backyard that extends, and what that does going down the slope is it changes the sight line and it blocks the view of the house because you've got this yard in front of it. So it's not the kind of thing where you have even a two-story mass that's right on the edge of a hill. I mean, I live in a hillside. I understand that issue. I'm in a fishbowl. I'm in the bottom of the fishbowl, and I have 2- and 3-story houses above me all around, and they're ugly. And I wouldn't want to be adding that to houses below them. But I really believe that in this case, that's not what's going to happen, because the house is set back. And if you're below it, you'll be looking up a slope, and you're not going to see that recess. I think you have to get pretty far back, pretty far out in the neighborhood before you're really going to see it. I could be wrong. I could be convinced by you guys that I'm wrong, but the way that I see it, I think that that's the case. So I feel like the neighbors really aren't going to be even seeing the bottom of this house necessarily. And certainly from the sides, they're not going to. The issue of 2 stories in a 1-story neighborhood is always difficult. And I think it does have to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. I think it's a lot easier to say that a 2-story house is incompatible in a neighborhood that's flat to begin with. But in something where already you have roof lines that are on different planes, I'm not sure that 2-story houses will never fit in. I think that I've seen 2-story houses that are done well and they look beautiful, and sometimes you'll see a 2-story house that really is noticeable and really ugly, and a lot of that has to do with the building itself, the materials that are used, and where it's situated on its lot. This house, having a lot of glass, makes me feel more comfortable. I think that in and of itself is something that reduces the visible impact as opposed to a house that's mostly stucco. Where you tend to see those houses, they tend to be reflective. You get more of the foliage around it reflected off the windows. You don't just have a wall. I'm just going to go down some of the thoughts. One of the neighbors talked about character homes in the area. I agree. I think you want to definitely keep character homes in the area. But I see this design as a character home. I think that this design is actually really interesting and up to the level of what's around the neighborhood. And that's not been something that I've said a lot on this board. Most of the time when we've had infill come in, I felt just the opposite, that people were trying to cut corners. They were trying to do things that were not up to the standards of the neighborhood. I know this neighborhood well. I walk around it. I live not very far from here, and I walk this neighborhood. And it's a beautiful neighborhood. And I love 1-story ranch houses, mid-century ranch houses. They're probably my favorite style of architecture. So I am sensitive to infill coming in. That project, we were very much opposed to that project, and if it was that project here, I would have a real problem voting for it. But I believe that this project does fit in, and I think it is a character house. I think it's a house that is up to the level of what's around it, and that helps make me feel comfortable that it's compatible. Because it's not just about the style, although I do think it's a ranch house, but it's also about being a good design, as good as the neighborhood dictates, and I think that it is that. Someone else mentioned El Merodero, which is the Brand Library building, and I think it's sort of ironic, because if you think about it, at the time that was built, that was definitely, well, it was built before there were a lot of other houses up there, but it's much bigger than what's around it, and yet people still point to it and say, what a great house. So I don't think it's always the case that a big house is going to be a bad house. I think if you do a good job, it can be a great addition to the neighborhood, assuming that it doesn't negatively impact on people around it. Given the nature of this slope, I don't think that this house will be negatively impacting the neighbors below it and above it. And I will say that the neighborhood itself is split. The last time we heard this, we did have a good 15 people who were not people who were residing. They weren't family members. They were neighbors who came out to support it, from not just from up above, but also from down below. So it's not the case either that, sometimes we see these properties where the whole neighborhood's really united and they really hate it, and you feel like there must be a problem because everybody really hates it. Here, there's really people have differences of opinion even within the neighborhood. Let me see. So I may think of some other comments later on, but that's really sort of what the bottom line for us was about it, that we're not convinced that other neighbors were going to be negatively impacted. We weren't even convinced that they were going to see the bottom of this house. That we felt that the materials that were being used, the glass, the wood, the steel, were all exemplary, that would all help to reduce the visual impact of the house, and that given what they had, that they really went above and beyond to try to minimize all of those impacts. And that's why we voted for it originally.
I don't know if you...
Well, Mr. Ellis,
jump right in. Dive in.
I'm not in a hurry, but you can go ahead.
I'm here as long as you are, sir.
First of all, I'd like to also say that this has not been an easy case, as Ms. Friedman said it so eloquently, because I know that the emotions run high, and we do really appreciate where both sides of this case come out and try to really express their true feelings and their concerns as good citizens and good neighbors. First of all, I'd like to say that I admire the way Ms. Friedman was able to so beautifully talk about architecture, although she always says that she's not an architect, but I think she talks much better than a lot of us. But I basically, she went over a lot of the reasoning that we thought that this project won't negatively impact the neighbors, because if this project was about numbers, we didn't need to be here. This board should have been replaced by maybe accountants. Because if numbers are everything, then there's no need for us to be here, and that would be so easy to figure out. We just add them up, and if it makes it, it makes it. If it doesn't, we say that's the end of the discussion. But the reason that we're here is because architecture is about what that cannot be contained or counted. Architecture is about a lot of different things. Even the compatibility points, that there were 5 of them that makes a building compatible. It talks about size, scale, bulk, mass, site layout. Only one of them, size, might be referring to numbers, and that's all for the most part, that was brought up today in terms of making this a compatible or a non-compatible building. Most of the reasons that Ms. Friedman just talked about, I don't want to, because the time has gone over, I don't want to repeat them, but basically I think the site has been utilized very intelligently, and the building is very sustainable for a large building like that. Having a second story below grade is a very big plus from an energy point of view, as well as making the building something that remains and maintains its height. And the one of the shots that I referred last time that was taken from down below basically won't change after the construction is done. And I believe, because I've been there many times looking at it from many different points of view, I cannot see the building easily. I have to really try hard to be able to see it, plus that if I see it, it will be the same, pretty much the same scale as it used to be. So I believe that it's a building that won't impact the neighborhood negatively.
Mr. Ellis.
Thank you, Chairman. I, too, had a chance to watch the last meeting where you two, God bless you for sitting through that, and to the applicants and to the appellant. I mean, it is a very difficult issue. It is someone's home, it's someone's dream, but there are some impacts. And I think the architect, I would definitely agree with you that they've improved the project. It's a nice-looking house. If this was a 60,000 square foot flat lot someplace, we probably wouldn't be here having this conversation. We'd be congratulating them. but it is a hillside home, and yet it's not quite visible, but it is visible, as the pictures show you from the bridge, and I go over that bridge every day. There are a few houses on there that I get nailed in the eye by the sun reflecting off their windows. This one, I have a lot of glass in it. There are the 5 points that you talked about concerning that they just mass and compatibility, and that's what it boils down to. If this house, in my mind, is about 1,000 square feet too big, and I see that because the minute this one is approved by the design review and is built, there are 2, 3, 5 in that little area that all of a sudden are going to be 6,000 or 8,000, or they'll be maybe pushing the limit. Now, I noticed the applicant thankfully didn't walk in with a .30 FAR, or whatever the lot was. I heard about a 9,000 square foot house could be built on that lot. You know, and he knew, and they know that wouldn't pass. Either the numbers would be right, as you say, the numbers are numbers. Design review and the city wouldn't allow that size of a house. That would clearly, in everybody's mind, be too big. This one, they've come down a little bit. They got a great design. They got a great architect. There's a way to squeeze another 1,000 square feet out of it, lose one of the parking places, and ameliorate the impact on the neighborhoods here. I foresee the problem not necessarily that can you see it, or is it going to be dumping water on the neighbors? They've talked about that. It's what are we opening the dam for? What's the next 2-story, 10,000 square foot house on a 70,000 square foot lot? When will we be seeing those? And I think that's where it's an incremental change over time. The houses built in the 50s were pretty large for the 50s and for the size of the lot. It's 40 years later, 50 years, it's time to, upgrade the housing stock. They've done a great job, but they've just gone a little bit too large. And so from my standpoint, I would vote to favor the appellant and ask that it be returned for redesign and come back with something under 6,000 square feet. I think the 5,000 that was supported by Northwest Glendale's representative is probably a little bit on the small side, just based on, I think, what the family's needs could be, but they could easily come out and take out 1,000 square feet.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Attorney Sewell.
Okay. I want to thank both sides. Very informed and elegant speaking, and without question, this is the kind of community that we want to live in Glendale, where you can agree to disagree, but you love your community and you want the best for it. And I see clearly that the driving force on both these sides. So we need more of that community involvement. I also want to say, and I don't want to self-congratulate ourselves, from what I'm hearing, it makes me proud to have come back on this board. I see people who are committed, who have been thoughtful, who wrestle with those issues, and I want to thank you that I'm glad I'm part of this AAP. We have a great board, and again, I don't want to self-congratulate ourselves, but hopefully you guys can see how we're wrestling with this. We really are taking this seriously. Before I talk concerning the project, I want to tell you I do not know which way I'm going to vote. I do not know right now. I want to go through some of the items, and I hopefully won't get too long, but I want to flush it out to help me understand these very complex issues, because I don't know which way I'm going to go with it right now. So please bear with me a little bit. I'll start with the original design and on the site and the original community up there. What was the original design intent when they were laying this project out and the other community homes in this area? Clearly, they recognized that it was a hillside community. And you can see the difference between the hillside community and the way that the homes are laid out here and the homes that are laid out here. These are more regimented, and these are more spotted and staccato in the way they laid it out. I just touched it. And then once you establish that, I'm trying to understand, okay, well, why did they then have these homes in this particular shape with this extra land around it? My feeling is that when they were up here and the surveyor and the architects and the engineers were laying it out, they were thinking, okay, we can lay a pad in here, we can lay a pad in. You can see where they started dotting these flat pads and let everything else exist as natural hillside. So the second thought that comes to mind is that the design intent concerning the site, I touched it again, was to create pads, and pads that work with proportion of the homes that were originally put on it. They then thought, well, maybe, since this is unbuildable, that's not what we should consider as far as the buildable site and the pad and the home, and still retain that dotted hillside design. Here it's different, here it's not. And I believe that this design purposely allowed it to have vistas through it and allowed natural chaparral to build, so on and so forth, so on and so forth. Okay, so I wanted to figure out what the potential original design was. And obviously, this is a hillside development. A big concern that we have all had is overdevelopment in the hillside development. You have to be uniquely sensitive on the size of the homes that go in the hillside development. It's a totally different ballgame. And you have to recognize that there are adjacencies and portions that I believe must always be contained and met and successfully designed within the hillside ordinance. You gotta, and if you're in the hillside, you gotta do it successfully, or you're gonna struggle. This architect is extremely talented. I have the pleasure of working with him a few years ago and seeing his work. Extremely talented. I want to commend the homeowners of hiring someone of talent, because this is hard to execute. And someone who doesn't have a good grasp on design and the hillside ordinance and all the issues to build something would fail. And this gentleman knows what he's doing. Words like compatible is a goal, and words like character, which you've always been real sensitive, is a goal. I believe that this design maintains the character of the neighborhood. It is a new interpretation of that California ranch, where obviously when this was submitted the first time, it struggled with its being approved. And this is a new interpretation of what the hillside or the California ranch is, and I think it does it successfully. I love these big ranch roofs. I like the new standing metal roof instead of the asphalt shingle, the glass and the vistas, enjoying the views. I think its design is very successful as a new interpretation in 2008, as many of the homeowners were saying, of what we want to build in our community. I think this is good, a good approach to contemporary design. Talks about there was discussions of people are afraid of change. I think they're afraid of change when it's done poorly. When it's done poorly, you don't maybe know why, but you react to it. That's bad change. Bad change is evident in all the different walks of life. This change with respect to design, I would clearly say, and I've heard us all say, is good change, good architectural change. The concern is it good change within the context of the hillside design? Don't know yet, because I think the design works within the hillside design. It's that other one, size, that I still don't know. If I can gather my thoughts. Talk was about this design is basically the same design as the footprint of the existing home. Not really. And we see evidence of that over here. When you see this hashed area, that's the existing footprint of the house. We have increased it in the floor height and the floor plate and of the existing square footage of the first story. Not bad, not bad. It's been substantially increased. And I think when you add this really large balcony, it's not just increasing the footprint, it's increasing its projection into or out away from the hill. So you can clearly see that its impact is here. Now, what does that mean? Well, if we look at this wall right here of the existing house, and we look at this wall, oops, touch it again, we look at this wall of the existing house. This is where the existing house is. This is where the existing house is. And look at it in context to where it is. We're now going into these palm trees and near this little roadway here.
I think it's a drainage channel.
It's a swale. Roadway. Little small cars.
A ratway.
Little small cars.
To the right, actually.
Okay. So we're right about here. Oops. We're right about here. And now we're going to go into this swale area. Is that bad? No, it's not bad. And then we look at the front. Okay, so this is where this house is now. We're going to increase it to here, and then we got the balcony. And if we use this edge of slope right here, that edge of slope is clearly defined right there. I believe that this new house is going to be right in there, because that's the bottom of that second slope. So this new house is going to be in this area here. Is that bad? I don't know yet. But we're definitely going outward. And I saw it as you did from that bridge. I crossed that bridge too. And I saw this house, and I tried to imagine what would I now see coming forward, coming a little wider, this great-looking roof, this great-looking glass. It's going to be more pronounced far away. I don't believe that it's going to impact this guy down here because of the angle, but I'm certainly going to see this house a lot more. Bad or good? Don't know, but I tried to analyze what was going on there. Okay. Next thing I tried to check is if this house right now is 6,648 square feet, plus about an 800 square foot garage, does not count to FAR, correct?
Actually, there is 171 square feet of the garage that by code is required to be counted towards the FAR, because as soon as you go above 700 square feet
Yes.
in garage, whatever that difference is
Okay.
counted towards the
So of
FAR.
the 800 square feet, let's knock it down to 700 square feet, and that gets put onto the house's FAR. So the house is really 6,550 square feet mathematically, and the garage is 700. My point is, its impact on that hill is increased, but I think the design successfully still has a two-story profile and a two-story bulk because of the tandem. Okay, tandem's a problem because no one's going to be using that car tandem. I have tandem parking in my building, and thank goodness they allow me to valet park, which is a perk which I love, but I'd hate to be the inside guy because you'll never use it. So where are those cars going to be? It's in the driveway. But it's a private driveway. I'm okay with that now. Tandem in a private driveway works for me. Next problem I see is that when you look at what the person owns that allows you to design this house, this roadway and on top of the roadway is square footage that's being counted towards FAR and the ability to increase your house size. This side over here is the same. So mathematically, this mass, which is a roadway and stuff, is allowing this house to grow. And if we look on the average, more or less, in this way over here, about half of the 5,800 square feet of site, almost 50% of it is really not part of the site. It's a roadway, it's way over here. No one would know that this guy owned this. So the visual impact I see here, coupled with the pad that's currently there now. So if I quickly do the math and divide 58.8 thousand square feet by 2, I get 29.4 thousand square feet. And if I divide that by the square footage of the house, which is 6,648 square feet, I have an FAR of about 23%. If I add the garage impact to that, because it's visual, this is only for a design exercise, an exercise that allows us to hopefully understand what's going on here, we get close to 25 to 26% FAR. If we look and take away those aspects of roadway and all that other stuff. Is that wrong? Nope. It's not a mathematical thing here. Again, I don't know which way I'm going with this thing, but it's not math. It's about the visual impact. But that's the way I looked at that way. So here's my little sketches and what's occurring for me. Okay, if it's not mathematical, what else is it? Okay, when we look at this neighborhood survey, which is what the original neighborhood survey was when the house was designed and all the other surrounding houses, we look at that the average FAR in this area is 15%. Okay? But there's some interesting things that we see here. Most of them are 15% or less, 8%, 14%, but we've got 33%, 25%, and 24%. What caused that anomaly in square footage or FAR? Well, let's look at it. The one that went to 24% is a 15.7 thousand square foot lot. The one that went to 33% is a 10,000 square foot lot, and the one that went to 25 is a 13.2 thousand square foot lot. It's not even as much as this. So those homes that went to the higher echelon of 24, 33, and 25% square foot lot, why are they higher in percentage? And what did that mean to the house that was designed on it? Those homes still were able to achieve a 3,700 square foot house, a 3,300 square foot house, and a 3,300 square foot house. So even though their lots were smaller, the original design maintained the same size homes all over the place. That goes back to what was the original intent. The original intent for me is, doesn't matter what size your lot is, as we see here, the home's original design intent was around 3,300 to 3,800, 4,000. Is that compatibility important in this neighborhood? Is that compatibility important in this neighborhood if it's hillside? For me, absolutely, because it retains the character of that staccato and dancing around homes on that hillside. So my first reaction, if I look at numbers, I go, this house is inappropriate, because mathematically, it doesn't work. But the house works for some reason. Because when you look at it, this is beautiful. It's a private road. This is tucked underneath. The architecture is great. So, is the numbers telling a lie? It is telling a lie. You can twist it and turn it, and mathematically, my wife's a CPA, so she's taught me a lot, and I like numbers and stuff, and numbers are telling you it doesn't work. But you still got the design. I couldn't agree with you more. The biggest fear that the city faces, I believe, is allowing big homes and hillside developments that don't have this kind of lot, the skillful architect, and now you open up Pandora's box. And they're going to use this approval for down the road. Please hear my words. Don't do that. Hopefully we have a design review board for a long, long time that don't allow that argument where many people say, well, you let it down there. We hear it all the time. We have homes in the neighborhood that have 5,000 square feet, and that's why we should have it. But when you look at the design, it's a poor design. This is a good design. So I don't think it's fair for me to impose a potential and future fear on this homeowner, this architect, this community, on the fear of what someone may do in the future. I don't think that's fair, because who can look in the crystal ball? The same way that we also don't allow and don't want, say, well, that's the way the neighborhood's going. We rejected that a while back ago. That's why we're rejecting. No, if it's good design, it can exist. Okay, in closing for me, I think that a lot has been dug out of this area down here to achieve the large basement. I think that's excessive. Because when I look at the recreation room and I look at what you're trying to put here and the width of it and how it's all working, I think that this area, even though you may not see it from the neighbor below, it has an impact there. And I believe that this band, and maybe even a little bit here, is a little big. And that, I think, is creating this 6,600 square foot house that when you see it, everything is starting to get big. You got a hallway that eats up a lot of square foot. I think there could be better designing of this, where this can be pulled this way and have this hallway end here and then Jack and Jill it or something. And I'm not here to design it for you, but you're utilizing a lot of hallways and I don't think interior is that great. There's a lot of space in that. I think you could have a smaller house and still have the overall image of what you want. So, I would have liked the house to have been reduced in those key areas, but it's such a good design, well designed into that location, that the numbers, I think, have been fleshed out, that I'm comfortable that this design, you can't read it and only numbers. I think it's well placed on the site and utilizes what's already there in Hillside, which is their design of Hillside within the footprint of the house. And right now, I'm talking myself into what I didn't think I could when I first saw it.
Can I ask you a question? A couple questions?
Yeah, sure.
Because even though I voted for it, I'm open to being convinced as well. And if we voted for it again, I'd like to be even more convinced we're doing the right thing. Mr. Ellis had suggested reducing the square footage by 1,000 feet. So my question is twofold. Number one, do you think if the square footage was reduced by 1,000 feet, then all of a sudden we have a house that materially feels different, looks different? And secondly, do you think that 1,000 square foot reduction would make the neighbors happy? Because I'm not sure that even doing that would satisfy their concerns.
Well, I don't know. I can't speak for the neighbors, so I can only try to talk about your first question. I believe that a reduction of 1,000 square feet on this home could be achieved and still have the overall beautiful design that you have here. Could be.
Yeah, but that's a different question. The question is, if it was reduced to 1,000 square feet, would we really see it? Would I be
Reduced by
looking at
1,000.
something, reduced by 1,000 square feet? Would I really be looking at something that looked really different? Or is it the kind of thing where if you put the plans side by side, you'd be really examining it to see it?
Yeah, I don't, I...
Because if it's, you see where I'm going.
Yeah, I do. I think 1,000 square feet is significant when you look at this garage being about 800. Imagine being a little bit bigger and then influencing big corridors, big foyers that take up square footage, hallways that take up square footage, large hallways and such. I think it could help this and certainly could help this. Now, could you see it? Not as much if it was a flat site or if you saw it from every day. I don't, I'm still... It would not be as dramatic as it may be in other homes, in my opinion.
Because if you guys convince me that, let's say, 1,000 square foot reduction would all of a sudden make everybody love the house and the neighborhood and, all of these concerns would go away, I think that's one thing to talk about. But I'm not sure that 1,000 square foot reduction would make that kind of a difference. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Not only the neighbors, but would it make it a compatible house? All of a sudden, that you look at it and say, oh, this house is completely compatible now.
No, it'd certainly make it closer to that, though. That would take that argument away that it's not compatible because of the size.
I don't know.
Plus, you're down to the three-car garage as opposed to...
And if you look at the front elevation, this configuration here ends, let's say, right about here and ends right there. Well, where is that right there on the existing house? Well, that's approximately where that existing house ends, more or less. So when you see the existing house, all this area here, where my little finger just ruined again, all this little area here is size.
But if you just cut that off, I mean, right now the house has an elegance because of its symmetry that would be completely lost if you did something like that.
Very good point. You're right.
It would actually look in some ways bigger.
In the basement, right?
If you took that, let's say you reduced the length of the house and made it narrower, you actually are going to make it look a lot more vertical. Right now, it looks more horizontal because it's elongated.
Let me kick that around, okay? This is the footprint of the house above, correct?
The house above?
Yeah, this dashed line is the footprint of the house above.
The first floor.
Okay. The first floor above.
The ground level.
He's already put in his foundation. He's already going to have to put in a retaining wall of sorts to hold back the soil here. Well, what if this...
Not really, though.
Okay, well, he can do... Well,
Right,
it depends.
those could be on piles.
Those could be piles or whatever and grade beams, but let's say, for example, he's got to build a retaining wall anyway. Well, what if he didn't build this pile and did this retaining wall and shifted it backwards and had this be a little bit more this way or whatever? Well, then suddenly we're pushing this a little back and you're reducing that. There could be massaging, but maybe your question is, would it change? Would this reduction over here, pushing it, turning it around here, make that visible change? I don't think so.
Not only that, this is one of these houses where it's been designed so carefully that if you start asking them to pull things out of it, I mean, I would have to be completely redesigned.
And I personally hate doing that. I just, I tell them, well, do this, do that, and then what happens, and you're designing by committee, and that's...
Of course.
Right now, I can only say that math does not do this house justice, so I don't want to use that criteria. When I look at the architecture, I think it's done well. Would I have preferred a reduction, given that in overall, so that everything is a smaller scale? I would have liked that, but that's not what we have here, and is that bad? Anyway.
Well, as chairman, as elected chairman of this alternative assessment panel, I get to go last, and so today was much more interesting than usual because there was a lot of dialogue before I actually had a chance to speak.
We may continue after, right?
That's right. That's right. So typically everyone just kind of states the facts or their opinion, and then we have some sort of a discussion. But in this case, the way it evolved, there was some discussion beforehand. So I'm privy to that information as I speak. But I had made some notes beforehand, or while everyone was talking, as to what my impressions of all this was. And I'd like to start off by thanking everybody that came out. It is hard for people to take time out of their busy schedules and come out on a Thursday afternoon. We realize that, and the assessment panel starts at 3, so it's tough for everybody to do it. It's tough for everybody to do it on a few occasions, to come out once for the case, and then you come out for the ZA case or whatnot, and you come for the regular DRB, and then you come for the assessment panel. It's a lot of work, it's frustrating, and it gets to be emotional at some point in time. And I believe that this case has certainly achieved that emotional status, because it's just an emotionally charged room. I could tell, although there's not a lot of bickering going on, you could just kind of tell it in people's faces as we look onto it. And so with that, I'd like to just let you know that we do appreciate it, and we take all your thoughts into consideration. As I went out and looked at this property, I actually had a hard time finding it. If it wasn't for the large sign, which I'm glad that the new system actually allows for larger signs, I would have probably been even more difficult to find the site. And then I went up the private driveway, and then I went around the side. I trespassed, I guess, which is legal for us to do as DRB members. I went inside, and I looked at the plateau, I looked at the layout. And until I saw that sign, until I accessed the area, it was really hard for me to see the property. And it was really hard for me to see the lower level of the property, which is where the lower plateau is. And as we heard the deliberations today, or maybe that's not the right word, as we heard everyone's opinions today, there was a lot of numbers that were presented from one side, and it was people that were for the appeal, and then we heard a lot of thoughts and ideas about architecture as well. I'm not as concerned about precedents. I'm just not. That is because I believe our boards look at, cases and look at specific designs individually. And that's what I do, and that's what my colleagues do. And so precedents doesn't really come into my equation or train of thought or even analysis, because I look at everything individually. And so therefore, it is not as a big of a factor in my decision making. And so therefore, our judgment should always be and are property specific and design specific. That's what this is all about. We look at the design, we look at its components, we look at the facts that present themselves in relation to that unique parcel of land that we are discussing. In this case, we have a good design. We have roof lines that are broken. The mass and bulk of the building has been reduced by articulation of the floor plan. And we have further reduction of bulk and mass with the clear story glass and the windows and so forth. Furthermore, the building is terraced. As we basically start from the bottom, which is the lower level, and we move up, the building moves back into the hillside. So all those are items which the architect has followed, which are part of the guidelines. They're part of the hillside guidelines. Break up the massing of the roof, break up the massing of the building, have a lot of articulation in the floor plans, have a building which is terraced, have a building that moves up and steps back into the hillside, and those are our guidelines, and that's what we go with. And when we judge cases, we judge them specifically on those guidelines. And so again, precedence has no bearing on my opinion whatsoever. That's what I look at. I look at the guidelines and if a specific design fits within those guidelines. And so this project specifically is a very unique site. It's unique because it's large. It's some 58,000 square feet. It's unique because it's in a hillside area. And it's unique because it has two plateaus. It actually has two flat sections. All those are unique components which you would not find in many of the lots. So when we look at the sheer size of it, the 58,000 square feet, you might find a lot of lots that are 58,000 square feet in our hillsides, but once you start looking at 58,000 square foot lots that have two large flat buildable areas on a private driveway, and oh, by the way, it's nestled in an area which is really hard to see from the surrounding area, and the surrounding streets, it becomes pretty unique. And once you have a unique site, it is very difficult to design a building to fit into it. You got to work on it a lot. You got to massage the design. You got to go back and forth, and you got to use those components of the site. And that's what the architect has done. He has used the unique aspects of the site, which are the flat plateaus and the two levels, and he's designed a building to fit into it. And so when I say that the design is well executed, it's because of those factors. It's not just something that I quickly look at and throw out as, oh, this is good architecture. I could see the process that the architect went through, from taking it from the survey and understanding the contours and designing a building that nestles into it. And so we have a design that's not so visible from the surrounding area. And we've had some discussions about this 1,000 square feet of would it make a difference. And being on this side, sitting up here, there's always discussion of, well, this house, if it just is 1,000 square feet less, would fit in well. And if you have a 6,000 square foot house, that comment typically is stated. If you have a proposed 5,000 square foot house, that comment is stated. If you have a 4,000 square foot house, that comment is stated. We hear it all the time. I hear it all the time. And so I always look at the design and internally go through a process of what Ms. Freeman and Mr. Insua did was, does this bulk, does this additional square feet, and it's arguable whether you believe that 1,000 square feet will make a difference, but does it make a difference on that specific design? And so when I look at this elevation, and I look at the hillside side of it, which is really the south elevation, if we start to take away some of the basement, we're talking about maybe this area and maybe this area. Well, these are the bedrooms, and we assume that these areas would stay, and then we're talking about the rec room. And so if the rec room went away, we would have this kind of a sloping hillside. The slope would be doing this almost. And so there'd be some landscaping here, so we would lose this much of this building here, and we would lose some of this over here. However, it makes no difference on the overall building. It just doesn't, because you still need the 2 bedrooms downstairs, and if you add the 2 bedrooms on this side, you're going to end up going into this culvert. So you can't do that. And you don't want to come over too much this way because of the way the site is set up. So you got to take those 2 rooms downstairs, and once you take them downstairs, how much more bulk and how much more mass are you adding by that extra 1,000 feet? And so that's the way I approach this. I approach it in that we could look at the numbers, we could assess the numbers, but what do they mean? And to me, my personal opinion, or the way I approach these hearings, is what sort of a difference is this house going to make? And from the street level, it's designed well, it fits the guidelines, it's 1 story, and it's certainly compatible, and it's contemporary ranch. And mind you, I haven't even started talking about the specific attributes of the design, of the clear story. I haven't talked about the metal roof and the railings and the symmetry and the way it's broken up. All that is coming up. But as far as the overall bulk and the basis of the design, the approach of the design, because if you approach the design incorrectly, if you begin the design incorrectly, your final outcome is always going to be off. It's always going to be wrong. And so we deal with that a lot as cases come in front of us, is the beginning point was based on misjudgment. The beginning point was an error, and so therefore we have something that just doesn't work out at the end. In this case, the house evolved out of a site that is unique and therefore is nestled into that site and is compatible to that site. Furthermore, the design is well executed. We have an architect that's paid a lot of attention to the roof lines, the way The roof lines actually break up from the entrance going down. We have a pronounced entry, which is very much characteristic of the ranch homes. And though at the same time, there's a breath of fresh air into it as well, with the clear glass and so forth. So I like the design, and I think the design is a good version of a contemporary ranch. And so, in conclusion, I support the project. And I absolutely look forward to a discussion that we could have on this matter. But I wanted to emphasize the fact that precedence does not come into my thought process, nor if it's 1,000 square feet too big, because one needs to really look at it specifically. Those are my thoughts.
Let me just throw something else out there, which is that I think that the opponents of the project who spoke and who mentioned the hillside guidelines are absolutely right, that we should look at the hillside guidelines and use that as a guide, as we're instructed to do. And I know that the primary goal, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong because I don't have them right in front of me, but I've heard them so many times, that I believe they say something like that the primary goal of the hillside guidelines is to reduce the visual impact of development in the hills. It doesn't say that the goal of the hillside guidelines is necessarily to limit the size of houses. Now, one may lead to the other, and it normally does. But it's all about reducing the visual impact. And I think that this house really bends over backwards to try to reduce its visual impact and its footprint. And I can show you examples of houses that are 2,000 square feet that have a much bigger visual impact than this house does, just by the way that they're designed. So I think that, it's very hard to tell from a rendering. When you have a house that's so big like this, lately, I'm more conscious than I used to be of how things end up being portrayed in the newspaper the next day. And I'm sure...
I didn't even read it.
And I'm sure that if we approve this, we'll see something that says, Design Review Board approves monster house. But I don't really feel that that's what's happening here, because I actually don't think that this house is going to read as a monster. If I thought that, I wouldn't support it for a second. And I think I've been pretty consistent in the years I've been on this board with that. And it is hard for me to get my mind around approving a house that's this much bigger than the houses around it. I mean, it bothers me. I mean, this is the kind of thing that actually keeps me up at night. So I'm really sensitive to that. But that's why I asked the question. If this was a house if this house was 5,000 square feet, I think we have the reps from Northwest Glendale and everywhere else saying we want a 4,000 square foot house. So I'm not sure that that's going to really. I mean, if you guys, the architects, tell me they can take 1,000 square feet and retain the horizontalness of this design, and all of a sudden now we have a house that has a much less of a visual impact, I probably would go ahead and vote against it and send it back and ask for that house. But I'm not convinced that that would make a difference.
Sure, if I could add. What can be designed smaller and still retain its design, I think can be achieved. We see smaller houses still have this horizontal ranch elements and all that stuff, and I think that can be achieved. What I wanted to point out is I was looking at this site plan and the hardscapes associated. By making the house come out where it does towards the swale, certain things occur. So let's take a look at this image right here. You can see here's our swale coming along here, and this dashed line is the footprint of our new home. And you can see this right here is the property line of the home, and this you can see is the landscaping. So if you look at this map over here, you can see that with respect to the property, again, with respect to this property line, the hardscape of that pool, because the house came out in that direction, now puts it to this blue dashed line. We then come across and we follow that pad, and you can see where this edge right here and where this swale is, you can see that that they've gone into this natural slope, and this natural slope of the swale is. So now this house, when you look at this photograph, is coming into right about here. And I'm not touching it. I think it's sensing me. It's coming to right in here. So now you're getting the house, getting the impact of the house and the site getting close to this edge.
Ivan, is that the impact of the house or of the patio?
Well, I think, I think it's an impact of the patio as a result of how this house
moves forward. But there's one thing I'd like to point out in that. I thought about that, but the idea that this home is terraced, so we have 1 level, 2, 3, it's terraced back, which is in line with the hillside guidelines. And so if the lower level actually moves up, so if this retaining wall moves up to where the front setback is, where the level above is, they're going to be hauling away more dirt, they're going to haul away, grade more, and we're going to basically end up with more of a vertical building, which is not what we want to achieve. And so it is correctly terraced. And so whether we like it or not, it's done the appropriate way. Now, the question of the pad and the pool, I think, is a separate discussion, because I think no one is ever going to see the hardscape of that pool.
Yeah. How do you get 3 terraces out of that? That's a staircase going down. I only see there's a ground one with the pool, and there's a second floor.
So we have, well, the overall impact of the building, you have 1, 2, 3.
That's not, I mean, that's in the height of the building, not the terracing of the land. There's only 2 pads.
Well, we're talking about the mass.
The mass,
of the building.
okay, I'm trying to follow the conversation. Okay.
So, well, I'm referring to the overall mass as terrace, so.
Right.
Just FYI.
Because I had may I jump in here real quick? A couple of the comments that you made. There's nothing under here. There's nothing under the garage. So if you reduce the space of the rec room, you're not changing this slope over in here.
It's just going to be sloped naturally.
But I know, well, I mean, I'm not the architect, it would be their job to figure it out, but I'm just pointing out that because you take out space in the rec room, does not change this end. What it actually would make it a little smaller, because you could be a 3-car garage instead of a 4. We start talking about the space, and I threw 1,000 square feet out. What the neighbors would want, I can't tell you, but they have to compromise just like the owner has to compromise. One of the things is, from the very first design, and you guys are kind of saying, it is a very nice design, and I compliment the architect. You didn't like it the first time it was here, so there has been change because the architect understood. Right, so you're not, just because you got a great architect doesn't give you a great design first time out the bat, right? My other comment was, and in the size of the space, I mean, I kind of go back to you, that there are ways to use the space a little more useful, or a little more, taking out some of the extra space. I mean, get it under 6,000 square feet, lose its parking space in the garage, and the neighbors, I mean, I go back to your comment about precedent. You may not take precedent. You're not the problem. It's those builders and designers out there who will take the precedent. That's what I'm concerned with.
They have to come through us.
Right.
Well, they do, or another board, or another group of board. Me, maybe not be on here. I mean, God bless you for not taking it, but that is a problem. And you guys admit to it. You've seen it, you've heard it over and over again from the applicants and from the opposition.
Can I ask you a question about that? Let's say, just hypothetically, they build it. And let's say when they build it, we all say, boy, that's a beautiful house. Well, maybe then we've set a precedent for trying to show designers how they can do larger houses that are more sensitive in terms of their design and their visual impact. Maybe that's the precedent that's set.
Have you seen that previously? Have you seen those great homes bring in the next one down the line? Or have you seen that great home bring in the simplest box that goes to the maximum of all of the design code? I mean, I tend to see only...
I see just as much of that poor design in small houses as...
I mean, I'm not talking size, but good design is great. Good design does not beget good design again.
To answer your question, I've seen a lot of examples.
Of good design?
Of good design.
I don't doubt you, but I think you can agree that you've seen a lot of direct come across the table.
I have another question.
And this is not direct, that's not my comment.
And you were making a comment, the bathroom is now way over here, and then we have a retaining wall holding the slope here. Well, we create this visual right here. Well, what if the bathroom moved into here, tucked it right into there, and then let the natural slope come up, and have this stair come here, and then stair down here? Suddenly, we have landscaping here. Suddenly, we have land here.
I think that's a good...
Okay, can that then work over here a little bit? We have land here. Okay, well, this area right under here is actually over here, so we're actually talking in here. Is this layout with this large hallway good when we think of this band right here and how it impacts this area down here. We go into here now, and we go way into over here.
And Ivan, I just looked over at Hamlet, and in terms of that change on the right, it looks like he is okay with doing that. So if that's something you think would help and would make you more comfortable, it might be something that you could put into a motion and let staff work with them on that and maybe some other.
I had the same reaction. I mean, those kind of changes, if it helps, I think they're a very good point. You could do things to lessen the impact.
I think we're nitpicking at this.
I would agree.
It is what it is. I think one either agrees with the approach or agrees with the design, or they don't. But once we start moving, let's move a bathroom over, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy to kind of say, hey, guys, we listened to you and we're doing something. That's not the intent. The intent is it the right approach, and if which bathroom here and there isn't going to make a difference, really. I think, if I may, I think it would be good for us to maybe opine on this for a few moments more, but I'm starting to hear the same things kind of over. And it is already 6:20, and Mr. Yu is sitting there waiting for the next hearings to start as one of the DRB members to come up here. So,
At least they can't say we rushed it because of the next meeting.
That's correct. We've been at this for 3 hours and 20 minutes.
I'm ready to make a motion. I move to return for redesign, or I'm sorry, what would be our motion and asking the applicant to bring back the house under 6,000 square feet?
We could approve with conditions, we could deny, and we could continue to another AAP meeting for additional information. So those are our choices.
So I would approve with a condition that the house be brought under 6,000 square feet. Plus the previous conditions that were provided before.
And I believe that's a motion made by Board Member Ellis to approve with four comments. First one being to redesign the home to under 6,000 square feet.
So that would be a reduction of 600 square feet.
I'm sorry, 600 square feet.
I would actually say under 6,000 square feet.
Right, but right now, the proposal is 6,648 square feet, so it's a reduction of 600 square feet.
Well, no, forgive me, because I just want to clarify this. If you drop it below 6,000 square feet, only a 3-car garage is required.
That takes 148 off right there.
To 600 square feet, the home at this point in time would still be 6,048 square feet, thereby still requiring a 4-car.
He's saying under 6,000 square feet. And it's up to them to figure out how to use that. I'm sorry?
Pardon? Yeah, so just to clarify, I just wanted to make sure that you are requesting that the home be redesigned to under 6,000 square feet.
And that's a approval with that condition or a denial?
The plan as presented, I have no qualms. I agree with all of the great comments about the architecture, and I think it will tuck into the hillside.
So how much of a reduction is that?
648 square feet.
It would be how they want to refigure the house. It may not come back at 5,999 square feet. It may come back somewhat.
All right,
I'm not mine to design it. I've asked the architect to see what he can do under 6,000. And the other conditions were?
The other conditions were the ones as follows from the June DRB date, which would be to consider revising the treatment of the balconies, around which I believe the architect has already made adjustments to. The second was to reevaluate and, if necessary, redesign how the backyard landscaping pad intersects the garden at the southwest corner. And this is for the drainage.
Right.
And then the last one was to consider removing the proposed corbels and unifying the material treatment of the building.
That was only a
and that was a consideration.
Right.
So,
I think if we're going to go down that route, and you're making a motion, and we of course need to get a second and vote on it, I think it would be only fair to dictate to them what areas concern you, so they could focus it on that area to alleviate that area. In other words, a blanket statement of let's make it less than 6,000 and we feel good about ourselves for doing something noble for the community. It's not going to make a difference if it's 6,000 or 6,600 square feet. So there needs to be specific portions of the design that bother you that you could dictate to the architect.
Floor size. The size of the project is what I'm concerned with. So I can't tell the architect where to take it out. It's he and his owner's decision how they would like to do it.
If they took square footage out, let's say from here, That would be fine with you? Even though the whole back and the
No,
side would be the same?
I think we're nitpicking here.
No.
I don't know where.
That's exactly
Can I
what I'm
put
going.
word, can I add words
Okay.
to what Ms. Freeman is saying and what Chair is requesting, more specific areas in which you may feel? Now, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but do you believe that reduction below 6,000 square feet in key areas of the first floor width and the second floor width would be areas to be explored? Meaning
The width meaning,
width, yes,
Like-
and the first floor width, which would focus in on this area on the first floor and this area on the second floor, instead of, as Ms. Freeman may be saying, 648 square feet.
On the
This
lower
way,
level, you wouldn't even
this
see it.
way doesn't do anything. It's
Right.
in
Right.
this area. Is that what you're trying to put words to? Or areas that you...
I would accept your, again, I'm not going to design the house for the gentleman. I'm going to say, I would like to see it under 6,000 square feet in a three-car garage.
Can you show how this garage can be made smaller?
No, sir, I'm not an architect.
But that's part of it, because we cannot just say, make it a three-car garage, because three-car garage might make it even bigger in width.
So it would be longer.
Well, he could leave it as a four-car garage, but he wouldn't need to.
See, you need to kind of be more specific, because there are things that we can just say, yeah, just make it a three-car garage, it will be smaller, but you try to make
Well,
it a three-car garage.
and again, this is not advocating...
We're not trying to
Yes.
design it.
This is
but
not advocating either
We
way.
have to be specific about what we're asking, because the next time they'll come back and, it's for the same reason that you're bringing it up, and we'll say it still doesn't.
Yes,
kind
and
of-
again, this is not advocating either way, but to try to
Maybe we should vote
put
on
language... Huh?
Maybe we should just vote on the motion and see what happens.
Well, let me
first.
just, well, I can't, I don't want to...
No, don't, please.
There was a motion made, so let's at least see if there's a second and see if there's enough votes.
Having our discussion, do you want to add anything to your motion?
I think he
A
kind of...
specificity.
Specific. That's a tough one.
To come in under 6,000 feet and consider, I see like the rec room size, the basement is kind of where I think if the house had no basement, we wouldn't be having this conversation. It would be 1,500 square feet or 2,000 square feet smaller to start with. So I would say the emphasis would be the loose space in the basement area.
Around the rec room.
You're right. I mean, that's
Yeah.
I don't know if I get.
So,
So,
and just for clarification, Board Member Ellis, your motion would specifically address the basement level as opposed to the suggestion made by Board Member Insua, which would be to address the width of the first and second floors.
I'll say the basement area is my primary concern, but to consider the width.
Okay. So that your basement would be your primary, but then also to explore the key areas on the first and second floors.
Good word. Thank you.
All right. So with that motion made, and again, this is just a motion, we would also still need to address the findings from the alternative assessment panel to...
The non-findings.
Or the non-findings in this case, yes. But is there a second to Board Member Ellis's motion?
Second.
I have a second by Board Member Insua. Now, this would be a roll call for this particular motion to approve with conditions and comments. Board Member Ellis?
Yes.
Board Member Insua?
Yes.
Board Member Simonian?
No.
Board Member Friedman?
Okay, I'm sorry. I just have to have this clarifies that I know what I'm voting for either way. So what exactly, tell me again what the motion exactly says.
The motion in this particular case would be to reduce the overall size of the structure to under 6,000 square feet.
Right.
And to focus that reduction primarily on the basement area, but also to explore the key areas on the first and second floors, the widths of the first and second floors in the east and west end.
Okay, I apologize. I would love to ask the architect a question before I vote on this. It might make me vote one way or the other, and we could get some resolution on this.
Will the architect please approach the podium, state your name for the record?
Yes, again,
I would love nothing more than for you guys to walk away from here with some approval that you're happy with and a board that is unanimous. I would love that. I think that you guys going forward, in case there's an appeal to council or something, to have a 5-0 vote helps you. So I'm trying to facilitate that. Is it possible, as you look at this, to do what Mr. Ellis says in a way that would satisfy your client and their needs and keeping this, without disrupting this design?
See, to me, there were a lot of discussions as far as compatibility, how it looks like, how it impacts, the neighborhood. The basement is the least impacting the neighborhood. I mean, if we are taking the 600 square feet out, that would be the entire recreation room.
Ivan's talking, for instance, about, I don't know how much square footage you have behind there that's not being utilized.
That's only a bathroom there, and I agree with that. It's just more disguising the basement, in a sense. On the corner, you will have more of a landscape stuff on the corner, which I agree with it. I don't have any problem with that. But that's just going to merely take about 40 square feet off. We don't have anything behind it. It's just basically soil. So 600 square feet.
I got my answer.
She got the answer that she required. And we are running short on time.
Okay.
Can I clarify
Let's just see where this goes. Okay, I'm going to vote no on the motion.
Okay, that is a no from Board Member Friedman.
And we have...
So, Board Member Zarifian.
No. Okay, so...
Can I make a motion?
Of course.
I'd like to make a motion to approve with the conditions that were stated last time, with the added condition of them doing what Ivan suggested, of working with staff to reduce the impact on that side, to try to bring that slope down, and that would be it for me.
To work with staff, and you would have no specificity in terms of reducing the overall size?
No. But it would be to reduce as much as possible the
visual
mass
impact
on that right side so that the slope comes down more naturally. And to move the bathroom over, because that I think is doable. I think that would help.
East side, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then you would also include the 3 previous comments made by the DRB?
Yeah, and just to say, because the Corbel thing came from me, and really, it's a weak consideration. I just put it there so that if you change your mind, you have the freedom to do it. It's totally up to you.
All right, so that's the motion made by Board Member Friedman. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by Board Member Zarifian. In terms of a roll call, Board Member Ellis?
No.
Board Member Insua?
One moment.
Yes.
Board Member Simonian?
Yes.
Board Member Friedman?
Yes.
Board Member Zarifian?
Yes.
Motion in this case passes 4-1 to approve with conditions.
Good. And I think staff is going to take a few moments to go over some of the special attributes of the site.
And again, there were...
Not the site, the project.
Well, there were draft
Considerations
as part of your staff report, in which case, and if you'd like, I can read them off, but these would have to be amended to reflect what is the alternative assessment.
I think Ms. Reich wants to read them all.
I think that what we would say, I think you have the text of those in front of you, we can read them, but what we would say is, as conditioned, the alternative assessment panel supports the proposed style and contemporary materials which blend with the existing homes, the proposed site plan, which utilizes the current location of the home and takes advantage of the sloped area below the existing building pad. As conditioned, the footprint of the existing structure has not been significantly altered, while the size of the upper level, which remains the more visible portion of the project, is compatible with the sizes of the surrounding homes. The lower level, additional floor area, is built underneath the existing building pad and appears more as a basement, thus having minimal impact on the perceived mass of the project. Now, we heard some disagreement with the statement, the footprint of the existing structure has not been significantly altered. Would you like us to strike that clause from?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll strike that clause, and the rest of that consideration would remain as noted and with the clause as conditioned in front. As conditioned, although the proposed home is larger than many in the surrounding area, the home's upper level size and lower level's recessed location within the slope are justifiable with the context of the above average 58,850 square foot lot size.
Could we change that to, from many to all? Since the truth
course.
is it's all? Okay, thank you.
Do we vote on this?
Yes, in fact, we could make modifications, make adjustments to that language. It is basically the mindset of the board and the mindset of the decision maker, so please feel free to modify it as you wish. What Mr. Ellis said, I think is good.
That would be my...
Yes? Good. Thank you. And just to remind you, we include this text in every one of our reports just to make it easier for you, not to put words in your mouth. Thank you.
So do we have to vote on that, or we're done with that?
I hear nods and agreement. You don't need to formally vote, but if you'd like to, you can.
I just want to voice one other thing, which is that in the past with some of these hillside properties that have come in with a lot of with landscape plans that seek to reduce, the impact, I want to be sure that as it goes forward, that plan doesn't get changed over the counter sort of arbitrarily, and I want to make sure that the plan checker checks what's planted against those plans so that it remains the native vegetation that I think will grow and help to shield this house from down below, because they're adding a lot of native plants, oak trees, toyans, that sort of thing, and I want to be sure that they get planted and maintained.
Well, that would actually be an additional condition that...
But isn't that always a condition when we approve something with a landscape plan?
Well, it is. It's something that just like everything you approve is checked in subsequent
So do I
approvals.
amend my motion then? And make
Sure.
that a condition and be sure that
Just
plan
to
check-
clarify, it's absolutely not necessary for you to tell us to make the subsequent plans consistent with the approval. However, if there is something that you're concerned about that staff should pay special attention to when we're reviewing, when we're doing the plan check, when we're doing our site visits, that would be where you would add those kinds of conditions.
Well, my condition is that the that the landscape palette remains natives, as is proposed, that the correct number of plants are added, and that they are maintained for those 5 years. And I know that's up to the neighbors to keep an eye on. That's self-policing. But I'm going to just put that into the motion to be sure that at least the plan checker has that and sees that that's something that we are concerned about.
Do we have to take another vote, or should we do a voice vote?
It's up to you.
All in favor?
I'd like to amend the motion in
Something
this case
that
to
I'm sure
include
all are in favor.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and amend the previous motion and to include that condition as a fifth item? And just in a quick succession, Board Member Board Member Ellis already voted to...
I'm all in
say
favor
no.
of her...
But Board Member Zarifian, nod of the head, yes?
Yes.
Yes, Board Member Simonian?
Yes.
Board Member Friedman? Yeah, if you don't mind saying yes, that way we'll have it on the record. Yes. And then Board Member Insawad, yes, thank you. So that motion has been amended and been approved. So that concludes the one and only item of the Alternative Assessment Panel. It is 6:40. Are there any comments that the board would like to make? Staff has no other announcements. We are ready to begin DRB 1 whenever you are.
I say we move right into the
Perhaps
DRB, regular DRB.
Perhaps we need to adjourn the AAP.
Yeah, well, that would be a good thing.
All right.
I move we adjourn.
Thank you. All right,
Is there a
second.
second?
All in favor?
All in favor?
And I was supposed to be in
Robert's Rules of
Hollywood.
Order.
Thank you again.